to the SmaxTalk Podcast. We are here with the Phoenix Rising Academy League Winter Split Week 3 episode, and today I am joined by Essentia's very own support, Laxin. How are you doing today?
A little scared. We're following up the Ryan Goosling, Goose, Akuma Joker, Zeppeli, and many other names episode. So I do have some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, my
It's
personal
also tall, so
favorite
it's literal.
my personal favorite was the worthless e-boy age.
Mm,
Um,
that was blessed. That was a blessed era.
that was pretty good.
There are a couple schism names that I don't want to bring out on the podcast, but those were blessed as well.
Yeah. We've got we both have a soft spot in our hearts for the goose himself. But yeah. Anyway, we're here to go over week 3. Um, we before we get into anything, we did have the analyst desk last week, which was pretty awesome for all 4 days of week 3, which was a really fun time. We got to watch all of those games and. Yeah, we had like a 30-minute segment each day for the analyst desk, and that was really fun. Laxon was there for 1.5, I'll call it. Um, and that was pretty great.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah. but but yeah, before we get into anything, I do want to shout out that specifically, and also the podcast here. If you want to be on the show and you are already watching the games, or you do want to watch the games and you want to analyze with us, feel free to shoot me a DM. You can come on. We're gonna have another set of guests next episode, which I'm pretty excited for. I'll leave that one as a spoiler, or I'll leave that one spoiler free this time because we spoiled Laxon last time. Um, I'll have an announcement on that soon. But in any case, we can then jump right into week 3 with the Fire Division. And we got a sneak peek in the last episode because we cheated and did our episode after the games, and we did it on Friday. This time we're doing it on Wednesday, so we haven't seen the Fire Division yet. But we can still go over a little bit of what happened in week 3 because we kind of skimmed it in the first episode. So yeah, we can jump into game number 1, which was Akuma Scythes versus RMU, and this was the first of the two Akuma games where they kind of bounced back, and they took a 2-0 week. They're now bounced back. They're tied for third place with the Wolfpack at 4-2, which is really good for them, and they had a really decisive first game here.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting to see just KDA alone, Malstixi 8-1 on Olaf, dominating from the jungle. But even looking closer, you know, Lucian Thresh is a very dominant bot lane, but being able to tear through a lane like Heimer Braum, and even just, mid lane is two scaling lanes, Cassio versus Ryze, you wouldn't expect to see a 5-0 Cassio and an 0-4 Ryze. You think those KDs would be closer. And Akuma just, I'm assuming, was really mad over that 0-2 week they took before, and they're just like, we need the points back because they certainly showed up in this game.
Yeah, I definitely imagine there's a little bit of that sentiment here, but I do definitely shout out Malstixi for this game for just taking every single objective on the map. He got both Rift Heralds, he got every Drake in this game, and he didn't even really have to gank all that much in the early game just because of how proactive he was at stealing away the camps and making sure M Deadly's Sejuani just couldn't play the game, which is pretty standard for Olaf versus Sejuani, but it's still really good to see that he is capable of doing this on this team. And yeah, RMU falling in the standings quite a bit now. They are in the bottom clump, but yeah, we'll go over the standings at the end of this division. I do want to talk a little bit about Devo because his Irelia was really good. He actually outlaned Shaden uh, pretty much all across the board. He had a lot more CS. He got some kills on the Kled early game on his Irelia, but he just did not fight well with the rest of the team. They didn't bring him down at the key moments. He didn't really make himself known in that way. And when everywhere else on the map is losing really drastically, you do have to step up a little bit on this Aurelia, and he just didn't really do it.
Yeah, I think part of the issue as well is Akuma is starting to show themselves as a fairly smart team. And just even champion wise, Kled gives you a lot more decision making. Even if you're behind on the Kled, you can decide to exert pressure across the map. When people hear the ulti, if they don't see him, it instantly causes panic. Or even you can bring your team in on a fight. Aurelia doesn't really have those options. She can decide to hard side a fight when she's ahead if she's there. but Kled has a lot more map mobility, a lot more decision-making options. So if RMU wants to get something like that Aurelia ahead and run the Sedge, you're really hoping to see that they bring it around the map more instead of really just sitting at top
Yeah.
and praying everyone else does fine.
Yeah, it was really just a you can't really fault Devo too much for it, as he did get the advantage early game pretty much by himself, as the rest of his team just really fell flat. But it's still he could have tried a little bit more to make things happen in those team fights, but he did have a really good game on the Irelia, all things considered, just based on the laning phase and how you could tell his mechanics were definitely there for the champion. But yeah, RMU now at the bottom part, and Akuma Blades, or not Akuma Blades, Akuma Scythes. There are so many Akuma teams. Akuma Scythes. They are now in the conversation for the higher tier teams, which is really cool for them, especially after taking that O2. So this is definitely a team to watch, but there are a lot of teams to watch in this division, and we saw another one on display in Game 2 where Aether pretty handedly demolished Shenzi's Frenzies in this game. It looked pretty sick from them, honestly. Or wait, is that the right game? Hold on. I have the. Wait a second.
I think it's one in front of the other, but we can talk about it anyway. It's roughly
Oh, found it. Yeah, yeah. I see what
yeah,
you're saying.
it's roughly the second game.
Right. But yeah, we had the Shenji's Frenzies Aether game. I believe that was game 2. We just have it a little bit out of order here. I believe. Oh, I understand what's going wrong. We don't have the other game from Aether Famous. Huh.
Interesting.
Wait, let me see if I can find that actually. You can talk about the game real quick.
Okay. The big thing to talk about here is certainly some bot lane matchups. Having MF and stealing away the Braum is pretty good. You know, you're taking away that Braum to block the MF ulti. There's not really any other projectiles you're worried about on your team, but it's always nice, especially when the enemy team is running things like blocking the Echo Q projectile, blocking Lucian's kit, blocking some Senna damage, especially the Senna ulti. But the issue from the other side is that Senna Leona lane, where it's possible to play it with appealing Leona, where you're not really looking to engage. You're sitting back in lane, you're waiting until those mid game catches to really pop off. But it's kind of an issue in lane because when you're against support like Braum and your Leona, peeling becomes a little rough. You have to go in. But Senna doesn't really want to do that too much early. She wants to hit some minions, farm some souls, and just heal up and get out of lane. So there was a little bit of a miscommunication from champions there, I'd say. They are two individual power picks. I just think that some teams are going to need to be a little careful on synergy
Yeah.
over just grabbing what's good.
Yeah, you really do have to think about that because Leona is a very, very aggressive champion, and Senna just does not really operate like that a lot of the time. You do end up just scaling in the early lane a lot of the time. But her early game is still pretty good, so you can get it off a little bit. It's just really tough against the Misfortune Braum, which is really unfortunate that they did play against that matchup specifically because in that instance, the Senna's stuff is blocked up by the Braum if the Leona does go in, so you can't really get past that all that well. And yeah, it just looked definitely like a little bit of a bot difference, mostly just on the champions, but also the players were definitely cleaning up quite nicely there. Caliburn and Curry definitely did a great job on their champions, but I also wanted to mention Dude Bay on this Echo. He did a really good job doing what you're supposed to do on Echo, which is cleaning up the fights in the late game and just being a nuisance of an assassin. You know, you get the chrono breakout, so even if you mess up a little bit, you can get that reset button and try again. He did get a lot of fights off where he did exactly that, but the rest of his team just kind of fell flat. The double marksman did not work out, especially against the Braum, and they did not have anything to stop Papi Chulo on the side lane at all. Because they did have Echo in the jungle, he didn't need to be in those fights, kind of frontlining for the marksman, and the Mordekaiser just fell super far behind.
Yeah, and part of the issue, you'd think Mordekaiser is a good champion for this kind of comp. Take a champion out of the game, you're peeling, that one champion off of your marksman into that's a really good idea. The issue comes when you're running into comps like Jarvan, who's a dive champion, Akali, who's a dive champion, Braum, which is a harasser or damage blocker, Fiora, which it can be a dive champion. First of all, you're not really getting through that to take the MF if that was your worry. But the other thing is, even if you take one of those champions away, there's so much dive potential left on the side of Aether that Mortals would almost be considered a hindrance because you're taking somebody who could at least have a pull, have some of that slow aura, and out of the game instead of standing there and peeling. So it feels like, and I feel like I'm going to mention this a lot today, and I'm very scared to do this, but that these drafts just are good in theory. Again, Mordekaiser's a good champion in theory, but it doesn't match up well with everything else that's a power pick necessarily. And teams are really going to need to be careful, especially with this new patch and some interesting buffs and nerfs coming out, that grabbing what's good doesn't necessarily make it good with other champions.
Right. And I think that not just Shenzi's Frenzies, but a lot of teams do have to start considering this kind of thing. Um, but specifically for Aether here, it's a really good look for them that they are able to look past that a little bit, have these better kind of drafts. And also, one thing that I really liked about this game is that they didn't need to focus on the team fights. Like you're mentioning, the Mordekaiser is good in theory in those 5v5s because you can lock like maybe the Akali out of the fight, and then that dive champion's no longer there for your backline. Aether didn't really make it exclusively about the team fights because they did have Papichulo on the side a lot of the time, and that's something that you really do have to consider when you are facing up against this Fiora. You don't really want a team fight with that champion. They did a little bit, and Curry Magnum did set up those team fights a whole lot, and a lot of that is just because they had this super fed misfortune, so they could anyway, but Fiora is still really threatening in the side lane, and if that's a possibility for the other team, you have to have something that can try to match it. The Mordekaiser clearly didn't work, and the Lucian fell too far behind in the lane against the Akali. So it did not really work out too well for them on a lot of different fronts in the draft, and I'm hoping that Shenzi's Frenzies can clean that up a little bit moving forward, and a lot of other teams too, like Laxin mentioned. We're probably going to be mentioning that a lot throughout the show. The drafts are a little bit iffy, but with that we can move to the other Aether game where they did play against Famous. I sent you the match report for that one, by the way. I don't know where that was before, but
I have it.
yeah, you've got it now. And this one was very strange, I gotta say. This is Aether's attempt at the double marksman themselves, and I don't know. I didn't really like it all that much, but mostly just because I don't think Yaji is the kind of player to do this. His Tristana did not look comfortable to me. He had a lot of instances where he could have gone in on control and gotten like a solo kill because he has Ignite. He's Tristana early game. You can jump and assassinate this squishy Cassio, but he didn't do it. He looked really uncomfortable in the champion, not really knowing its limits and stuff like that. So I think this might have just been them limit testing a little bit. Granted, they did still win. They had a very fed Aphelios, and it wasn't really about Yaji, but you still got to clean that up a little bit.
Yeah, the kind of issue looking at this game is it's certainly one of those Cinderella story games where it's like, Aphelios is good when he has a lead, so what if we gave him 12 kills? Like, that's so unrealistic most of the time. And the issue that we could just talk about this week with Aether is there seems to be a very similar thing that's happening. You know, top does decently well, mid stays ahead, jungle does work, but this seems to be very much we give the ADC gold, and then we look at why ADC is a good role.
Right.
That teams need to realize that. And again, there's a lot of in theory stuff. Shen blocks autos. You think that'd be good into Aphelios? It's not always good like that. Like,
Yeah.
that's an issue, especially when paired with something like Senna, who you're not really capitalizing on all that time.
Right.
These teams need to start realizing how to play weak side bot into Aether and either not giving gold or, figure out how to outskill them, pick better champions, pick stuff you're more comfortable on, a dive comp that works. But it's just 2 games in a row you're going to see here where Caliburn gets ahead, says, I have a bunch of gold, and then let's just win. And
Yep.
it's really just, if you think about this game, ended in 27 minutes. If Aphelios doesn't have all that gold, you have the Ornn scaling, Cassio scaling, Senna scaling. There's so much that they could have had if they could just make the game take longer, but they just pumped gold into the enemy ADC,
Right.
and it's just really a shame to see.
Yeah, you can either play this weak side bot or you can pick a better jungler in the early game and make it a little bit tougher for Caliburn and Curry to pop off like that. Of course, they are still early game champions in the Aphelios and Thresh, but Gragas was open, Olaf was open, Rek'Sai was open. All these really heavy early game champions that you can go down bot lane and get a lead with were available, and they just didn't take it. Immortal Suki picked the Graves very early on, and I think they picked the Ornn with it too. So it was just really strange. I think they got a little bit caught up in the Shen flex, which isn't good. I'll just leave it at that. Shen is not a very good champion,
Yeah, it looks
especially in
real
this form.
pretty. It looks real pretty, but then you read the reviews and it's like more the Morgana struggle.
Yeah,
People are really gonna have to watch out about some of these champs.
yeah. I don't think Shen is gonna really be making waves in PRL like Morgana does sometimes, but yeah, probably start avoiding the champions that are a little bit weaker, because it also just didn't look like a comfort pick. There's a different thing,
Yeah.
and we're going to talk about it next game too, where you can tell if things are a comfort pick, and that's kind of the Wolfpack story as a whole. But Suave does not look comfortable on the Shen, and it's not a good champion either. So
Yeah.
there's not a lot of reason to be picking it. But yeah, unfortunate for Famous, they take another loss. They are now in the bottom clump. And we can get on over to the final game of the night, which was the highlight game. We had the two teams fighting for first place, Lost Collective, Gladiators, and Wolfpack. And Lost Collective came out ahead in this one. Speaking of Morgana and other champions that are not very good, we
Yeah.
saw Morgana Kaisa in the bot lane, and then it was answered with Vayne, and I was mad about it.
Now, I'm mad about something else, if I may just interject very quickly. Top laners need to calm down. That's what this game was at the start of it, because the top lane is an island meme should be true to a point. This is a game where we saw two great solo kills, but one for each top laner. This wasn't
Yeah,
like one top laner dominating the other. This was an Ornn killing a Gnar, which just originally is wild. That's like, it's a ranged champion with a jump. You really need to be able to work with that.
yeah,
But the other thing is, after you get that solo kill on Ornn, you can't turn around and be like, "Oh, Gnar, do you need gold?" Like, there has to be, like, boys got to calm down up there. And it's fun to watch with those solo kills, but playing slow isn't always a bad thing. You can accelerate on Gnar, look for those solo kills, but Ornn, especially when you squeak one out, buddy, like, you could take your foot off the gas.
yeah.
Like, don't be afraid.
Yeah, it was definitely a fiesta in the top lane, but the rest of the game was really just, could Echidna find the stun onto Triple Lift, and if he could, that was probably the game, and they did. That was the final fight. He did get a quadra kill on Cassio, and essentially ended the night in style there, finding the kill on
Yeah.
Triple Lift. Triple Lift was actually kind of popping off on the Vayne though. He
Well,
was doing pretty well.
he was, but he wasn't. And I'm going to say he wasn't for a very harsh reason. You, as good of a player as anyone is, when you make mistakes, because everyone makes mistakes in league, that's how you're going to lose. And when you make a mistake objectively before the game starts, that's really big. We don't see a cleanse, we see a heal. That's a shame, but you have to remember, we're into Morgana, we're into Cassio. These are champions that you want to cleanse the stun and get away from.
Right.
Okay, you want the heal. That's understandable. I'm looking for the QSS. The QSS, you're into Zac, Kai'Sa, Cassio, Morg. The MR is great. The AD is great. The lifesteal's great. You can cleanse the bind and the stun. But he built 3 items. 3 full items, was working on a fourth, no QSS.
Right.
Like, you just got to be smarter than that. And I'm not going to say that would have turned the game and won it, because I don't think that's necessarily a fair statement. But I think
Yeah.
it's fair to say, if you wanted to win this game, one of the easiest solutions is just put a QSS on the people that matter. I
Yeah.
know it's a 1,300 gold tax, but you got to pay the fine.
And another item that I think would have been really good here is the heal reduction. There's a Zac, there's a Cassio on the other team. These like drain tank kind of champions that just DPS you and then out sustain you forever. No heal reduction at all on Wolfpack against these two champions,
Well,
which,
they
you
have
know.
the one ignite for sometimes, to
Oh
be
yeah,
fair.
yeah. My mistake. My mistake. They have one ignite for one of those champions. Yeah. You know, I don't know. I at the end of the day, it's really just another damage item, right? If you go that and you really do want defense, if you're this Vayne, because you already have so much damage, you already have all this health shred against the Zac and the Gnar, really good champion in the late game against those, but they didn't rally behind Triplift, and Triplift made it harder for them to by building so aggressively as well. He was going to go for the GA instead of the QSS, as you mentioned, which is not really beneficial at all. If you find yourself reviving in the Guardian Angel and the Acacio is still alive, just bloop, drop the miasma. Oh, you can't
Yeah.
tumble away now, and you're dead. The Guardian Angel did nothing. Same with the stopwatch, which he had a component of for the Guardian Angel as well. It's not going to save you. The QSS is what you actually want to save you. But yeah, that was a very interesting journey that we went on of picking weird champions and then just also building really cocky. I will say. Um, but yeah, I do want to give a lot of props to Lost Collective for keeping their heads on straight, even though this Vayne was very threatening and very ahead in the early game too. They kept they kept on with the scaling strategy, and it worked really well for them. They managed to pick it up in the end, and Echidna and Griffin. This may be a little premature because we're only in the first division. I think this is the best mid jungle in the whole league right now.
Uh, I think I can agree with that. They work very well together. They seem very coordinated, and the big thing here that a lot of these teams are doing is they're not taking those risks. Where you'll see some mid jungles panic, especially if there's a kill bot or a kill top, and they'll say, mid lane strong, we need to get mid lane ahead, and they'll int under tower, or they'll burn sums on their own side that they don't need to. And you're seeing a much more controlled style where if they don't have to go and they don't, but when it's just so obvious that they can make the play, they'll make it. And even
Yeah,
some of those 50-50s, they're squeaking out ahead on. So it's a skill thing, but it's also just a mental thing as well that they're just being smarter about some of these engages.
yeah. I I'm really high on those two. I think that they do a great job being the front runner carries for this team, but I think that the rest of this team is really good. Honorable mention to Applause for kicking ass as Morgana, which tough to do because the champion's pretty bad, but did a good job. I can't really fault you. It's the same thing with Tripolis Vayne. If he's good at the champion, he can get wins with it. By all means, like that's a comfort pick. You can pick it into counter matchups. It's fine. If it's a detriment to your team and you could be picking the better champions, that's where I have a problem with it. So if he's just as good as Aphelios and he picks Aphelios here, they might win the game just on that because Triple Lift was so far ahead and he would have had the extra range. He would have been able to be a little bit out of arm's reach of the Cassio Zac, and it might have been a difference maker. As yeah, we'll never know there for that game anyway until they play against each other again. But we'll be done with game 4 here. I do want to touch on the standings a bit and where these teams are going to fall for next week, as we have a premier match in this division on the stream next week where we have the two top teams playing against each other. We got Aether and LC Gladiators, both of them only taking one loss so far. They're both 5-1. We had a segment last podcast about who we thought was the team to fall out of the top 4 in this division because you can only have 3 in playoffs. There was a little bit of a consensus that it was going to be Wolfpack, and then Akuma Sai squeaked into there, but no one on the podcast anyway said that any of the top 2 were going to drop it out. But I want to have a little bit of a different question here for you, Laxin. Who do you take in this game here between Lost Collective Gladiators and Aether? Because I think it's really
Yeah,
interesting and really close because they play through different parts of the map.
and
Yeah,
that's kind of the big thing here that playing through mid jungle is two of the strongest roles right now, in my opinion. Just in general, a lot of map presence, a lot of objective presence. They can really do things in the area, but I'd honestly give the edge to Aether because they play through bot, and that's, bot lane bias for me. But I think the big thing is teams haven't really done a good job of putting a stopper on Caliburn.
Mm.
They don't really stop that Caliburn Curry connection. They don't create anything that stops that lead from forming. And it's tough. Lost Collective has certainly got those mid jungle leads as well. But I even think in theory, you can pick to be a little bit safer. You can pick a jungler that hovers mid. You can pick a champion that just farms safer in that mid lane. And the same can be true for bot. But my other note to that is that's a lot easier to bring a 4-man dive bot than it is to try to bring one of those 3-4 mans mid.
Mm.
Just because the way the lanes are set up, because of how much champions work, it's certainly possible. But you see those dives in the side lanes a lot more than you see it in that middle lane because of the amount of people that can respond afterwards, and the vision that you can usually get up around that lane. So if both teams can play their win conditions, I'd only encourage Aether to just play safe mid. You don't have to win through mid lane, and as long
Mm.
as they can remember that, Caliburn should be able to do what he normally does and just squeak by a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and start garnering that gold.
All right. I think I'm already on record saying that I think Lost Collective is going to take it. Um, I think I already had a thing mentioning why, but I think it's very, very close. Like you're mentioning, I think that there are definitely clear win conditions for both sides, and I agree with you that if they can manage to do that, they will take it home. I am a little bit so. I guess to put it in a negative spin, I am less confident in Aether's non-win condition lanes than I am for Lost Collective. I think that Echidna into Yaji is a bigger mismatch than Caliburn Curry into Ezreal Applause. And that sounds more negative than what you were saying. So I apologize for the slight flame, I guess. But
Oh, I'm not a big backer of either team. Don't worry. I was just that was more of a general opinion than me with my fan hat on.
yeah, yeah, I think it is very, very close. I I think I am gonna give it to Lost Collective with like a 70-30 though. Just because I'm really, really confident and high on Griffin and Echidna, and I think that Ezreal Applause are still like they can still do things on their own. I just
Oh
hope
yeah,
they
yeah.
don't pick Kaisa ever again,
And I'm
please.
just I'd have to say that as much as I was backing Aether there, I am really of only like a 60-40 opinion, maybe even just a little like a percent or two less, as it's a lot easier for something to go wrong bot lane
Mm,
than it is something go wrong mid lane because you can just say jungle don't leave me and he can just always hover mid, where cornering your jungle bot side and praying it can help
yeah,
if you're worried about that is going to be a lot more difficult if Lost Collective decides to try to play a roaming mid or something and swing their advantage through bot.
yeah. I Oh, we're gonna move to the next division here in just a second, but I want to close this out by saying that these are definitely both teams to consider threatening coming into the playoffs. And as someone for another division, hint hint, Laxin, these are definitely two teams to watch out for moving forward. I think that they're both gonna make playoffs, and yeah, they're gonna be really, really threatening. Um, so not
Yeah,
just for
so keep
Laxin,
looking.
yeah, not just for Laxin and Essentia, for who is also looking to get into playoffs. Any team that is looking to get into playoffs, I would watch these teams and watch that game tomorrow. It is going to be a really good one, and it's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So be sure to tune into that one. Actually, don't know if I'm casting that one. I'm gonna. Oh no, I'm not. I'm not. We have Mighty and Tyler doing that one. So that'll be a really good one. But anyway, with that, we can go over to the Essentia division where
I
Laxon can tell us a little bit about this
I
stuff.
need to apologize for I need to apologize for both games for different reasons. So the first game was SPK versus Sencha, if I may be so bold and take the lead on this. SPK was formerly an undefeated team. Sencha won. The reason I needed to apologize is because we ran Soraka top, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for introducing it to this league. I'm sorry for doing it. I feel bad about it, and we will do it again. But it's just it's so stupid. Like, you can agree with that, right, Smax? This is
Yes,
just a stupid
and
champion
they didn't
in a
nerf it.
stupid lane, and they didn't nerf it, so it's going to be stupid for longer.
I agree.
More to the point, we're just gonna roll through. A 9-2 Varus. Oh gee, wow. We
Really big
saw,
Varus.
yeah, Varus getting advantages. It was really just a couple misplays, to be honest. Demon played very, very well, out of his mind actually. But there's a couple things like Arthidius having an off day, trying to dive the Varus after the turret's taken, not having the damage to follow up, so Varus just heals and blows through him. Spartan sticking around a little too long. Um, I'd certainly say, to be fair to SPK, I think we outplayed them, but I think it was also a lot of mistakes on their end. They just did not play a clean game.
Mm. Yeah, I. It's funny because I've been saying this for like 3 or 4 months. It feels like, but anytime that you guys have a Rek'Sai in the jungle, the bot lane just needs to be very scared. You guys, it seems like you guys have played that more than the games that you haven't played that. Like,
Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess, is
yeah,
a very easy way to phrase that.
it doesn't matter what jungler is there.
No, it really doesn't.
I don't know. It's wondrous. The teams are not banning this pick against you guys because it
Yeah.
works. It works like 90% of the time.
Now, Smax, I also understand you have a grievance with me, but
Yes.
before you say anything, I am going to point out that it does appear that a 2-0 Karma support did outdamage a 9-2 Varus ADC.
Yeah. So the reason for that is because Striker and you and yourself, and also Fancy Italian to his credit, went bot a lot of times and they set up everything, and then Demon was like, "Oh my god, my team is popping off. Let me go shoot an arrow." And then he got the kills. He got 9 of them.
Well, there were certainly times where like Arthidius and Spartans diving Varus, I stood a mile behind him and he just solo killed both of them basically. Or there was certainly damage in lane he was doing and just running them down. I think it's fair to say that we certainly had a sniper in the back out there, but I don't know. Varus does a lot of damage, but I guess AP Karma is just OP Karma.
I disagree.
That's a fair point.
I think your build was pretty bad.
I think what don't you like about it? We're gonna spend an extra minute on this.
Morella Namakan first buy. I don't like it at
Okay,
all.
so I got the orb. I'll walk you through this. I got the orb, right? Great. I had enough gold for blasting wand after. I was gonna build that into another item.
Okay.
When I backed after that, I had 625 gold. About 625 gold is one pink word, which I very much needed, and wouldn't you know it, finishing Morello. So, like a small brain support I am, I said me need item, me buy, and I clicked on it twice.
You know
Was
you
it the
can
best
right click
decision I've made?
items, and then you only have to click once. Do you know that?
That's too efficient for me. I
Oh,
play mages.
okay.
Um, there's ups and downs. The down is that's completely the wrong item. It's almost unjustifiable,
Yep,
and I would have been better buying an amped home. I believe I had the room for it.
you did. Yep.
The positives of this, they had 3 champions that healed, albeit just tiny little baby amounts, but I could pretend like that was relevant.
Are you counting Morgana's passive as healing?
As a 32% win rate Morgana one trick, I have to count it. I'm sorry, 33%. I don't like being rude to myself.
Okay.
I hope your cam's on the stream because we can just all see the pain then.
So game
Do you want to move
2.
on? Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, do you want to move on?
So we're actually not going to talk about game 2, other than the fact that Soulbound Tsunami has like 8 Bard players on their team, which is crazy. But the reason we're not going to mention it is because Charlotte Phoenix is going to be removed from the league. I don't know if the announcement's going to be made before or after this video is going to be released, but they have been accused and caught account sharing. I'm sure if you were watching on the stream, you already know. We don't have to get into it too much, but Charlotte Phoenix is going to be removed from the league, and so is Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech has bowed out of their own accord, so that's a different situation. So there are now 2 empty spots in this division, which means half of it gets to go to playoffs. So cool. We're gonna get more
Yeah.
More Cinders Division in the
Imagine that
playoffs.
only punishing teams that are in first. Ooh.
Yeah, so the teams that have already beaten Charlotte Phoenix and the team that was going to play them next week, aka Sunshine Storm, are kind of upset about this. And
Yeah.
the other teams are
That
pretty
lost to
happy
them.
about it because that means Tempest Gaming just picked up their 4th win.
Round of a fourth?
4 because they get 2 wins against CLT and they have 2 against Virginia Tech.
Oh, Jesus Christ. They're really rising in the ranks now. I hate to be rude, but they're. It might be. You said, I believe, last podcast, go watch it if you haven't, that it takes about 6 losses maximum to get into playoffs. Right? If you lose more than 6, you
If
just
you
can't get in at all.
if you lose more than 6, you are likely out. Yeah. It's
So,
They're still mathematically possible, but obviously that's
it
very
does
rare.
look like Tempest, I believe, is only going to be at 4 losses now, if I'm correct, right? As one would
Um
get reversed, then they'll get another
yes.
win.
Yeah.
So they got room.
The the
That's all. That's all I'm
problem
gonna say there. They got room.
the problem there is that now the math is different because there are only 6 teams rather than uh
Math, schmath. No one even knows that anymore after they graduate. Just think about it this way. Don't think about it.
okay. I won't think
Yeah.
about it. Yeah. That sounds fair to me. Uh but yeah,
Game 3.
yeah, well, unfortunate for Charlotte Phoenix. Nothing against them other than the fact that they knowingly account shared and smurfed in our league, which is why they're being removed. But anyway, yeah, we can now get over to Game 3, which is Lost Collective Avengers, which is the worst team from Lost Collective. I think that's fair to say. And they played against Soulbound Tsunami. And yet again, we're seeing another Bard game, but this time they are against a better bot lane. And they can't play into the Aphelios Thresh. So, also, they have Karma mid, and she went Glacial, which is really not useful against Victor because then Victor gets an entirely free lane, and then he did, and then Talon ran over every single person on the map,
Well,
including his own team.
I think there's. This is a very unfortunate game for one of these sides. You're running Bard, where you can't be lane dominant. That's an issue. You're running Glacial Karma into Victor and saying, "Hey, please scale." That's an issue. The lane we haven't touched yet, which we'll jump to right now, is top lane. Rumble could be a top laner if every aggro champion was banned, and that's a wonderful fantasy world that I don't think we can live in this season.
Yep.
What Jake Top decided was, hey, what about Renekton? And then Rumble went 2-7. I think the best way to phrase that matchup is I remember watching on stream, Renekton went in on Rumble. Rumble got traded down. Rumble had about 200 HP left. Jake Top was almost full health. Eternity does the smart thing. Backs to base, TP's back. Great usage, heal up. He's going to do it better this time. He walks up to the minions where the wave is. Jake Top goes in, trades them. He's down to 200 health again. He doesn't have TP anymore.
Yep.
That's not even unfortunate. That's just bad.
No
Like, we
jungle pressure
can't.
either. It's just the Renekton doing
It's
this.
just a Renekton, but you can't draft 3 losing lanes and then think about how you're going to win the game. It's impossible. These things are impossible to think about.
Yeah.
It's possible the Bard could have made a couple more outplays, some fancy footwork maybe a little bit. But other than that, you're not really drafting lanes to get ahead. And then you draft a Lee Sin. Granted, Core Havoc got ahead early. Great on him getting 2 kills early game. But as much as the casters are saying, he's not doing anything with the lead, and that's true, you have to kind of feel bad for him because what can
Yeah.
he do?
He
Can't
can't do
help
anything.
Rumble, can't help Karma, maybe can help MF Bard, but Thresh just flays him away and they're just walking out. Like, he didn't have a lane to bring the advantage to.
Yeah. This is the game of solo queue where Core Havoc gets chat restricted.
Yeah, that is factual.
Because he is actually popping off in this game, but he just cannot do a single thing ever. And he's Lee Sin, and he's sad about it. And he even tries to go lethality just to try to carry a little bit more, but he just can't do it because everyone else on his team is dead already. And it sucks. But yeah, that's kind of just the story of this game. I feel bad for Soulbound Tsunami, specifically Core Havoc. Pour one out for Core Havoc there. He tried his best. But yeah, LC Avengers pick up another win there, and we'll go over the standings after this final Essentia game, where you guys had to come back in this game. You were losing for about 25 minutes, and then Babs decided to die 4 consecutive times in the side lane, and then you're like, wait, we can win this. He's the only one with kills. Let's just walk it down and win, and then you did.
Yeah, this was the other game we probably have to apologize for. Because we probably shouldn't have won it. You look at a 10-6 Kiana, 4-1 Zaya, and you're like, oh, look, that team won. And then you look at the other team winning in the end game, and you're like, wait a minute, there's Riot must have a client bug or something. But
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it really is. Babs had a lead. We had a Mordekaiser splitting, and Babs said, but what if I go to the side lane and match? And instead of running down our entire team and helping his team just get ahead, get objectives, he went to the side lane so much. And the worst part is he started dying to the Mordekaiser. But even if he's winning, when he goes to that side lane and he gives us time to go because, Rek'Sai can dive in, Galio can ult on top, MF Cassio can walk up and deal their damage, can't really get engaged on that well. It's creating a lot of these issues where you need that Kiana, you need that assassin to kill the backline to disrupt those fights. And they were doing it so well early game and then they stopped.
Yeah.
So I just think they outthought themselves in that game.
I agree. Yeah, there was one particular play where Babs was 9 kills on the Kiana and Fancy Italian was 0-4-0, and Babs goes up to the side lane while the whole rest of his team is bot trying to contest on the Drake. He goes up there. He's like, "Hey Cassio, you want to fight?" And Fancy Italian's like, "I don't know why, but I mean, yeah, let's just 1v1." And Fancy Italian wins it. And then right then and there, I was like, Babs, you kind of just threw the game. You kind of just gave the game over to Fancy Italian, who is a crazy good mid laner. He stomps everyone. You were stomping him up until this point. You made him go 0-4, and then you gave him a kill on Cassiopeia in the late game. And it wasn't just a kill, it was a big shutdown kill, and it was on the member of their team that had well over half of their kills. You can't do that. And yeah, they definitely overthought themselves in the lane assignments, and it just didn't pay off. It didn't pay off. They needed to take a little more page out of the NARAM book and then just 5v5 the entire game, because they probably would have won if they just 5v5'd everyone. Because there was really not too much that you guys could have done about that. Except for maybe Mordekaiser ulting the Kiana, but
yeah,
instead he
got
just
lucky.
donated
We got to do that in the
himself.
side lane.
Yeah.
We got to do that in the side lane. So God bless.
Yeah. But yeah, you guys took the comeback win. You are now in sole possession of first because you had the head-to-head against SBK, and they're tied with you now because the wins are going to get reversed. So yeah, we can get over to the standings now, which are ruined. But
Yeah,
it is what it is.
It's tough to look at because it's not even going to be the same in about an hour.
Yeah. So Essentia Storm, you guys stay the same. You are 6-1 at the top. Unfortunately for you guys, SBK Defiance is also 6-1 now, with their only loss being to you. So and they're actually, well, okay, you guys are technically going to be 7-1 on the standings here.
Well, they will too, and I think we should ignore the extra wins people are going to get from CLT for now, because the headache of calculating that on top of the Virginia Tech games that are already thrown in is just...
Yeah. But good thing for Tempest Gaming, they are now 4-4. They are now even in the standings.
They're in the running.
Yeah, they're even. So that's pretty sweet. One of should I sugarcoat this or no? What do you think?
Yeah, please do. I'd love that.
Please sugarcoat this.
Absolutely.
One of the contenders for the league, Tempest Gaming, are now even more so contenders, and they can be very happy about that. Do you want the not sugar-coated version?
So yeah, I'd love it.
Tempest Gaming is probably one of the worst teams in the whole league, and they have now picked up their 4th win. And I don't know how to feel about that, but that is going to make the Cinders division very strange to watch. um, it was very strange to watch last split. So you already know about that. The Friday division is just cursed, it seems. Um, but I want to get your opinions on who you think is going to match you for playoffs, because as of right now, if the
Huh.
standings are the same, um, okay, we'll just
It's
say, so we don't have to calculate it. It'll be the top three is you, SPK Defiance, and then LC Avengers.
yeah, currently right now that's it. Um I don't know if much of that's going to change. I do
Mm,
know that currently Soulbound Tsunami record wise is fourth in the running for third. They are the team that took our win from us. So, to a point there has to be something there skill wise. Did we outthink ourselves? Probably, but did they have to play well to win? Yes. Imperial Knights is showing some life in some of their games, and in some games they're getting leads and then saying, I don't want to win this one. And then they're giving it to other teams, which is
mhm.
weird. You don't normally do that in League. Um, which brings up a very interesting point that it appears my division is everyone in the middle is almost interchangeable, which is a very weird statement.
Yeah,
And
we
it's
could have
weird
we could have
to not
instead
throw in the
put
first and the second.
Imperial at third instead, because
Yeah,
Imperial have only lost to Essentia and SPK Defiance, so we could have very easily put them at three instead.
yeah, they've only lost to the top teams. Tsunami hasn't lost that many games, took a win off one of the top teams.
Right.
Like, these are the teams in the middle, third down, are very interchangeable and movable. SPK was undefeated before this and lost to us. We have a 6-1 record. We've been getting wins out the league, lost to one team. So I think first and second are fairly locked, but anything can happen to be fair.
Yeah.
The big thing here is it's this middle part of the division where we were talking about the division before, where you were talking about a top four and that's it. And even then, you decided Wolfpack might leave, and Wolfpack did kind of take that loss. Akuma Scythes won those two. You can kind of glean who the top three are, or at the very least, you can tell definitively who the top four are.
Hmm.
This seems to be very much a league where even though now we only have 6 teams, you can't even tell the top four in order,
Maybe even the top five.
the top five in order. You can't
Yeah.
tell the top four at all or the top five in order,
Yeah.
which is wild because it's out of 6. So
It's really strange.
it's certainly painful to watch, but I also think it's going to be a fun league to watch on those Fridays
Yeah.
because you genuinely don't know what's going to happen. And it's not necessarily because anyone's good or bad. It's just, I think collectively, myself and my team included, we're all just so damn stupid that like who like right but like who we ran Soraka top though, like who knows though, because it's so bad that it's good, but I appreciate that from everyone I'm playing with in this on these Fridays.
Tea Time is just a genius. I don't know. I don't know what more there is to say there.
Tea time's ahead in the time zone, so he knows the future
Yeah.
because he's in Britain. That's really, I think that's what it comes down to.
Probably what it is.
That man is literally reading the future because of the time zone he's in.
Yeah. So with that, we'll close it out by saying that this division is going to be probably the closest of the divisions. So definitely, if you like that kind of thing, definitely watch these games. Also, because two teams are now out, it's very likely that we're going to be seeing most, if not all, of the games each week, because there will be two teams forfeiting. So that could be 4 matches, it could be 3. And I know next week there will be 4 matches, and it'll be only those 4 on the stream. So you won't actually be missing any games, most likely, of this league. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But with that, let's move on to the 40-minute division, uh, which is the Ashes division. And we have Ferocity going 2-0 here, and they are the first team that we're going to look at. So they played a very long game. It's going to be a theme of this division. They played a 40-minute game against X1 Brotherhood, who were previously the second place team, just underneath the Embers, SBK Embers, and they had another very impressive. It was very similar. They had a very impressive Kiana player in the mid game, or in the mid lane, and they didn't do as well as they could have. They didn't take the fights that they really wanted, and then they got hard outscaled by a Xerath and a Darius. And I was very, I was, I was like face palming for most of this game for X1 because they just could not end it with Hecarim, a Kiana, and an Ornn in the front line, and then they have a Senna backing them up, and then they have Braum too to protect the Senna. This composition, if it wasn't full AD, would have been so sick for these fights, but they just couldn't do it, and I was really pissed.
Yeah, it's weird not to say anything, but there just isn't much to add because they
Yeah.
drafted the Ornn for Ord items, and they drafted the Senna, who's an infinite scaler. And I understand that you have to back up that with some early game, and they did very well. Hecarim's kind of one of those weird scaling-ish junglers, but really gets some of those early game E-ganks if you're lucky, and then pops
Right.
off mid-game ulti, I'm going to fuck up your mid lane. Like, that's what the boy does.
Yeah.
And they picked the Kiana to carry early mid. Great decision. And then they forgot damage types, because while Ornn does percent max health magical, Ornn also isn't necessarily a damage dealer.
No.
And they picked all this AD, and all that AD is very good when two conditions are met. The first condition is you have to get a lead. They did that wonderfully. Kudos to X1. They showed that they can dominate an early game. The other condition, sadly, of a full AD team is you have to end the game, regardless of if you have scaling champions or not. And this is where the Senna starts to hurt. When you want to close out a game, you don't want an infinite scaler that says, oh, well, if we get behind, I got this. Because that shouldn't have been in the discussion.
Yeah.
That should have been, we're looking for those Lucians, maybe even Tristanas or Kaisas where you're hitting more of that mid game. Caitlyn early with those crit builds. Like I know that got nerfed, but there's things you can do to supplement that Senna even a little bit, and just even a minute or two earlier hitting those spikes would have been so huge for X1.
I don't know how I didn't see this before. I watched the whole game and I did analyst desk for this. Laxin, can you tell me what item is in the first spot in the inventory for X1 Brown Nose on the Senna?
That would be Berserker's Greaves, I believe one of the many items you don't build on Senna. If I may, can I continue on the build path, as there is a story here and the people need to hear it. There is also a upgraded Yomu's. That's an upgraded Ornn item. Great decision. There's a Duskblade. That works very well with her. I believe it's her E. Great decision. And Edge of Night protects from Ash Arrow, protects from Xerath Poke. That's a great decision. Now, I've said great decision a bunch. Do you know it's not a great decision, Smax?
Well, it's the Berserker's Greaves.
Well, other than that,
there's the healing reduction item in there too.
I'm going to jump to taking a specifically scaling champion and building exclusively lethality items into such champions as, let's see here, is that Tom Kench, Tank Jarvan, and Darius I see on the enemy team? What? Now, you're not getting the Xerath. Let's be honest. No one's getting the Xerath. That's what the champion does. You're not getting to Ashe. There's a Tom Kench, a Darius, and a Jarvan. The hope of that is zero. What is your lethality doing into that team? Because whatever you're hitting, like Ornn autos might have been doing more than your autos if you're only building lethality.
Probably.
Because it's so sad. Like, it's so good in theory when you take each individual item and look at it. This is what I was talking about before in the podcast about champion strength and combining them for synergy. This is now where we're going to talk about item strength. All those items individually might be a good purchase by themselves, but when you put them all together, you can't win.
Yeah.
Like, you can't win the game.
So,
and it's not his fault he lost, but my God, did he not help himself win?
The Berserker's Greaves is really the most
Oh yeah, not getting those Swifties
in the world.
There's a world where even a tank boot like a Merc Treads you can just vaguely justify. Maybe if you don't build that Edge of Night.
Yeah, you can never justify the Berserkers on Senna.
The attack speed item on Senna? Why?
It's so bad.
The attack speed boots that give you nothing? It's just, yeah.
They're also more expensive than the other ones.
Yeah.
That's annoying. I don't know how I didn't notice that before. But anyway, these games are really long. We did an analyst desk episode about it. If you want us to go in depth a little more, you can also tune into that. But yeah, the short of it is Rough Beans and Shut Boomer outscaled really hard, and X1 didn't close it, which they had the means to do, and they just didn't. They didn't do it as cleanly as they possibly could. Um, and yeah, it's really unfortunate to see X1 drop that far in the standings now. As well, it's not even that far, really. They're only in third now. They're tied for third with Ferocity, so actually they're fourth. So my mistake. They're in fourth place, where before they were in second. So it actually is quite a big dip. They're out of playoffs if it stopped here. But I digress. Unfortunate for X1. That was the last we saw of them on the stream. We did see Ferocity later, but before then, we got to see SPK Embers take their 5th win in a row. And this one was against TFT, and this one was also a massive throw by TFT this time, where they had a really big early lead with champions such as Misfortune and Leona in the bot lane. And they had Talia in the jungle too, who bought a Majai's early game. He was that confident. He sold it later though because they realized, hey, we're throwing. We should probably stop that. And then they didn't.
Yeah, it's Big Oof is very rarely able to classify a game in its entirety, especially a 43-minute game, but I think it can here. That's fair. And the biggest problem I have with what happened to TFT, God bless their soul, is you look down some of these score lines and you look through the game as it was being played, and bot lane gets that early lead. Great. Aatrox holding his own, I believe he did fairly well early, started to trail off late, but it's not like he was put behind. I
He
wouldn't even
actually
say he was
was.
doing well in lane. Yeah.
He
Oh,
actually
he
was
was
put
put behind.
behind. Yeah. He was ganked like twice by Timeless.
Ah. But
So yeah,
even
he
to
actually
that point,
was.
you're absorbing the jungle pressure,
Right.
which
For your
you are getting put behind,
Leona
but
MF.
which is God bless, like you're getting kills. They're put behind in the lane sense. They're not put behind in the game sense. I apologize for that.
Yeah.
Because you're absorbing jungle pressure, moving jungle topside. You're getting your Talia, who got to build a Mages, also ahead. You're doing things on the map. All that considered, topside is jungler. You know their jungler's topside. He can't go bot side. Your bot lane's fed now. How are we dying eight times mid lane? That's the big question.
I
Because
I will tell you how actually. So the engages were only Diana, whose name is Boy, but there's an FK at the beginning.
there's
So
2 letters and we can't say them on
yeah,
stream.
we're not gonna say those letters here. For the sake of our younger
For the
audiences.
children.
Uh, we have a question regarding the children audience later, but we'll get to that when we do.
Oh yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
Boy on this Diana, he found some pretty sick engages, but he did it like 2 seconds too early every time. And then he ended up getting this really cool moonfall, like, Diana. And then he died. And he ended up dealing like 300, 400 damage to everyone. And then the rest of his team's like, man, our Diana's dead, but she did a little bit of damage, so now we're going to go in and try to fight. And then they would also die. Bernard, who is another name that I don't know how to really go about saying. I didn't know while casting either, so that was fun. Um, I he started really well, but you could really tell that outside of laning phase, this guy has no idea how to play Leona. Because, like I mentioned before, the Diana was the one finding the engages. Leona was pretty much absent until after the engage had happened, and then Leona would go in and he would die too. And then Heimerdoodles would go in on the Talia and he would die too. And it was just a classic, like, low tier Overwatch game where you're in a cycle where all 6 people are just cycling in, dying, and then respawning, and they never go in at the same time. That's what this game was. For a lot of the fights here for TFT, and that's how they did eventually start the loop to throwing. It took them a while to get there, and
About 43 minutes, it appears.
it also took SBK a lot of effort to get back into it. They had to take 2 Barons to do it, and they had to pick a no damage team that only relies on the enemy team throwing at some point to even think about winning this game, and they luckily did.
But my
Uh,
God, it happened.
it did happen. So nice job, SPK Embers.
Yeah.
One thumbs up for winning that game that you have absolutely no right winning. Um, but we can talk about SBK's drafts in Game 4 because that one was even worse. I am very concerned every time that I see a team in this division go to 40 minutes because there's another team in this division that doesn't go to 40 minutes and they will beat you every single time if your plan is to wait for them to mess up and plan to win in 40 minutes. And that team is Akuma Katanas. Akuma Katanas, oh man, that's another thing we should talk about at Game 4. But needless to say, going to 40 minutes is not going to work against both that team and the other teams in playoffs. So if this continues through the rest of the weeks for games without Akuma Katanas in them, the teams that are not Akuma that go to playoffs are likely just going to get run over right away, and that sucks. Because I wanna see these teams do well. I want to see some competitive games in playoffs. We had a lot of duds last playoffs where a team went into things pretty confident and then they got smacked 3-0. I
Yeah,
don't want to see that again.
a team becomes 2-0 and then it gets reverse swept.
That was a close series, man. You're
It was
selling yourself
close.
too
It was
short.
close until a team won 3 games in a row. But
You're
I think I
selling
know what you
yourself
mean
too
here.
short.
Can we do game 3, by the way, just to ask real quick?
Let's go to game 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So game 3 is Ferocity Red Hair Pirates. Fancy that. It's another game where it's a 40-minute throw.
A classic.
What do you
Nice, nice,
know?
nice.
Classic Saturday Division, classic Ashes Division. Um, why did they pick Lucian Thresh? And then they're like, I see that the bot lane is very defensive from the other side, and they want to be abused in the early game. Let's put our Lucian in mid lane and then pick Sivir so that no one does anything in bot lane. Why did that happen?
Well, I think the big brain part you're not seeing is if you're afraid of Senna scaling, instead of stopping her from doing that, instead you should take a champion that doesn't scale as hard and has objectively a weaker lane and put her there. And I think that's a really great job. That hurt to say. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if you can't hear my voice. I'm trying very good to be. That hurt to say. I don't know, dude. It's like the build thing. Now, I'm going to harp on this build for so many reasons, but it's because someone needs to hear it. And the Senna player that needs to hear it is not in this game. No, no, no. I believe they were 2 games ago, and yeah, Mr. X1, you might want to listen, or Team X1 in general. Mr. Brown knows. Here we
Brown
go.
knows, yeah.
Senna gets 2 good items, right? 2 good lethality items that are good with her. Duskblade and Edge Knight to stop it.
And Muramana.
Gets Swifty Boots. Gets that Muramana that you got. Great. Here's where the build differs. Not only is Infinity Edge an upgradable Ornn item, surprise, it is also an item that boosts your crit damage, which Senna gets passively. Also, she got Rapid Fire, because you don't want to walk up to champions that can dive on you, big guy. It's like, I know this Senna lost as well, so like harping on this build like seems like such a weird thing to do, but I can't wash the taste out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Like this, ladies and gentlemen, we've seen Senna surprisingly like a large amount. I think we've seen it now 3 games in a row in this league. And while the Senna's build last game differed just a little bit, it hits all those same points. You want Swifty Boots. You don't want only lethality items. Like, boys, lads, boys, as Grosko would say, boys, lads, boys. Like, you gotta pay attention to what an item does and how they interact with each other. Because I'm even gonna harp a little bit, even past that. You know, where was it? I saw it before. Yes. Malphite, getting those great Ornn items. I mean, getting those great regular items. Quality job. Has Bramble Vest, Warden's Mail, and wouldn't you know it, a Giant's Belt instead of finishing
The Thornmail.
Thornmail, whatever he wanted to get. Okay, maybe he just had that much gold and he needed to buy that Warden's Mail last second of the game.
Well,
Here's the
he
main
needed
question.
Randuin's is really what it was.
Yeah, you have, what is that? 2 crit AD carries who can also choose not to hit you? That's interesting. Instead, how about you take reduced crit damage and have an item where after you go in, you have an AoE slow around you? That's so good. They have 280 carries and now they're immobilized. That's
Pretty good.
so good. But he didn't take that option. He said, I'm Malphite. Of course they're going to hit me. They don't have to hit you. The other thing is, Thresh can peel you. Gragas can ult you, knock you away if he decides. Set can take your tanky ass and ult you away from his carries into your own team again. There's so many options where they don't have to interact with you. You have to pay attention to your items. You don't. Bramble's cute. Bramble's a really cute item, but it's not cute when it doesn't do anything. Like these are situations where you have to think about how to spend your gold. And it's like,
Oh
I
man.
keep seeing these games where, but isn't it true? You keep seeing these games where
Yeah.
players are spending gold incorrectly, and then they throw up their arms and they go, how'd we lose? I don't get it. We were playing so well in like the middle of the game. And then you look at where they're taking these detours from what should have been done and making mistakes, not even in play, but in their own fountain. And it's just so ridiculous.
So I want to before I get to my real biggest problem with this game, I want to go on a little bit of a tangent. Is going Berserker's Greaves on Senna better than picking
No,
Kaisa?
no. I said no before you finished. And I'm proud of myself because I knew it'd be right and it was. It's not.
Is it?
Kaisa's not the best right now.
She's
Kaisa,
so bad.
she's not very good.
She's
That's true.
so bad.
There's certain situations where she's good. If we
I
scroll up, I'm gonna paint a picture where she's good. Hypothetically, instead of a Senna with Berserker's Greaves, if you're running, let's say, I don't know, Hecarim Kiana who get ahead early with an Ornn top, and you need some AP damage. Maybe you need to melt some tanks like Darius Jarvan and Tom Kench. Maybe you want an AP tank shredder in the ADC role.
that's good. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. That is, it's funny, but it's true, which is why it's more funny. She's certainly not the best. I play bot lane. For those of you who don't know, I'm a support main. I play on Essentia. I know bot lane fairly well because I hate myself enough to stay there.
Me too.
Kaisa's not. Smax knows as well. That's why we can both say Kaisa's not the best. I won't
No.
say she's the worst, but my God, is she
She's
not the
getting
best?
there. She's getting
She's
there.
she's almost hitting mid tier. God bless her soul.
She's below mid
But
tier.
she fills. Kaisa will always fill a niche of the AP shitty vein. And that's what she is. She's the AP shitty vein. When you need an AP character in the ADC role that shreds a tank, you want AP shitty vein, which is Kaisa. And Smax is laughing because, again, it's so true.
It is.
Because it's so sad.
It is.
There's
Anyway.
games where you want it, but, like, God bless.
So
I
that
don't
was
know.
so that was a fun tangent there. I want to get to
I
the.
apologize.
No, it's fine. I led you straight into that. I wanted to hear it. My final point on this game 3 here between Ferocity and Red Hair Pirates, and this is the reason that Red Hair Pirates is an 8th. They are an 8th, by the way. EQ Lightning did take a game off of them, so there's that. The reason that this team is an 8th is because they pick 5 champions that can team fight so well. Just picture in your head how a team fight with these 5 champions would go. And I don't see a world where if the teams are on the same level that they lose it. Even if they're a little bit behind, I think they would lose a 5v5 fight. Right? Am I crazy for thinking that?
I don't think you are. There's certain ways where these team fighting comps don't win. Going in one at a time. Not clicking your abilities on the same target.
You know what happened? Is that.
Yeah, but I think possibly both even. It's just...
It was such
it's
a
what
mess.
we as viewers would call unfortunate and sad, but it's certainly not something that can't be mopped up. These are certainly... I feel like a lot of these teams have problems. To be fair, I've been being very rude to a lot of teams. I like to be rude to my own team as well when I get interviewed for MVP, which doesn't happen anymore. But the truth of the matter is a lot of these teams have problems that can be fixed. But the biggest issue, like the biggest sickness in PRL, is that a lot of these teams don't fix these issues. They don't, even if they practice or they don't work towards fixing any of the problems they have, and they're so built on what they're good at that they forget to work on what they're bad at.
Yeah.
And
I want
some
to
of these,
take this time, I think you do as well, to say that Red Hair Pirates, if you are listening, first of all, thank
yes,
you for listening.
thank
Second of
you.
all, target selection is really important in fights, and I think that that's the first step to getting really good at team fights. So focus on that. You're clearly picking champions that are good for team fighting. So that's you're doing step one. You can clearly play these champions. You just have to play them as a 5-man unit. You're not playing solo queue. You have to be able to fight these teams and get your advantages further than they are. I I believe in you guys. You can do it. But I wanted to get that segment thing in because you guys are in eighth and we're getting to the second round robin. So if you don't shape up, probably not going to have you on stream too much, and that's nothing personal. We just want to have the higher games on the stream. It's the same for all the bottom teams. So, uh, for your next games off stream, again, if you're listening, focus on target selection in your scrims leading up to your games, and you can keep playing these champions. Just know that that's where your strength lies, is
Now,
going in for these fights.
I have to offer a counterpoint very quickly, Smax, because you've said something that is technically incorrect.
Okay.
Well, you have to click on the same target. Clicking on the same target only matters if it's a good target. If you
Yeah,
all,
that's
if
what
you boys
target
all go
selection
in,
is. Yeah.
but the definition you gave, I'm very scared of. And it's not to be rude to you, but I'm very scared that in this game they would have said, I know what to do, target selection. We're all going to go in and use all our abilities on set at once. That's not good target selection. That's
Yeah.
objectively very bad target
Okay.
selection. What you want to do is focus the mid and the ADC. And I'm being remedial because I'm scared.
I was
I
too
am
vague about
scared,
it. I'm
Smacks.
sorry. I was too vague.
Yes. Hit the good ones.
Yeah. The
I
two
think that's a
marksmen.
fair
There are
statement.
two marksmen on that team. You can
Yeah.
kill them.
And they're
That's
both
pretty
good
fun.
ones.
Yeah.
Hit the good ones.
Yeah.
Easy. Any
Okay.
team can follow that rule. Just hit the good ones.
Okay. So, with that, let's get to the worst draft of the entire season so far.
Yes,
And that
yes,
is
yes, yes.
SBK Embers with, we're going to go through all 5 champions now. Shen top. Trundle
Mhm.
in the jungle. You know, it's a front line. You know.
Yeah,
Lysandra mid. Okay.
it's a
You
front
got
line.
some crowd control. You got some front line there.
Yep.
Kaisa in the AD role. We already talked about it a little bit.
Bad vein.
Bad vein. Also very very restrictive in the range. So you've
Hmm.
got Lysandra and Kaisa now, who are very restrictive in the range and do primarily magic damage. And then you've got Rakan, who, albeit, does augment these shorter range champions by giving them shields and charming people for them. So
Yeah.
Rakan's a pretty good pick here. If he wasn't, you know, the squishiest
Yes.
support in the entire game and you're against Leona. So,
Now I'm gonna jump in real quick because again, I'm gonna harp on items. I'm gonna harp on draft. Those are two things I believe in very heartily. Do you remember what I said about Kaisa? What kind of vein she is?
she's a shitty AP vein.
AP. We hit the mark. She's shitty as well, which is also important, but she's AP. She's a mixed damage carry. So when we look at Shen, who does a lot of magic damage, and
Yeah.
Lysandra, who is a mage, and Rakan, who does magic damage, that's one of your two problems. The other problem, and they got lucky because they built so much magic damage, is Shen auto attacks, and Trundle auto attacks, and Kai'Sa auto attacks. You also built 3 auto attackers, which I'm assuming Ivermectin might have been hard to kill because he said, "Screw Merc Treads, I want Tabby." And then he built a Spirit Visage, and congratulations, all your auto attackers deal less damage, and all of your damage dealers are AP. Guess what? They all do reduced damage. Like this is, boys, it hurts me.
It's
Like
really
if you
painful.
wanted the Tank Shredder, there's no way Vayne was banned. Vayne's not good enough to be banned.
They also just don't. All 4 of these champions, even though we're saying what kind of damage they do, it's not a lot.
Yeah, this is by no means someone's going to go in there and 100 to 0 everyone. Lysandra might be the closest to
Even
that
then, yeah.
notion. But yeah, even then, it either takes a QSS or an MR item, and congratulations, you've lived.
Yeah. He also went Aftershock, so he's dealing even less damage.
Yeah,
They
it hurts me.
they just have
I gotta
something
say.
against dealing damage. SPK Embers. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know why they have this problem, but They
Yeah.
just have this problem where none of their 5 players wants to deal damage. You
Yeah.
know, Laxin, maybe you should just join this team and play mage bot, and then you'd be this sole damage dealer, and you'd pop
Well,
off every game
if
and get
they're all going to deal
MVP.
AP damage, if they all deal AP damage, I'm not sure I can.
Maybe,
But
yeah.
I think the bigger thing here is to applaud Akuma to a certain extent because it's not always, well, mistakes certainly win games. Just doing the right thing certainly has a hand in it.
Yep.
Even just draft alone before the game starts. Silas can take Lissandra's ult for lockdown. Shen's ult, so now you have a side laner that can always match like a Shen does. Great pickup, great thought.
And
Renekton
Trundle ult,
Hecarim
which is really big here.
and Trundle, yeah, to take those resistances. These are very good things. Even Rakan ult for Charming. These are all ults that are very good for you.
Yeah.
Hecarim, Renekton, Leona all have 2 things that they can do extremely well. 1, great at diving. Great idea. Because Silas can go in as well. 2, peeling. They all have a way to save your superstar Xayah, which is also true. Xayah can sit in this backline, even approach the front of these fights, and walking through a Renekton, a Leona, or a Hecarim is usually tough. But walking through all 3, when you send 1 or 2 to the backline and leave 1 to peel, or God forbid all 3 to the backline, it's no way to fight. Like, it's so unfortunate to try to think about target selection when, let's say, either A, the ADC's in front of you, but no one on your team does damage, and your backline's getting blown up, or how do you walk through that line? There's no way to get through all 3 of those champions.
Yeah.
Akuma had a very smart draft this game, just on what they're picking and what they want their champs to do in relation to the other team. And it's just, you certainly have to applaud them for that. This wasn't just a game that was lost by one team; it was certainly won
Yeah.
by another.
Uh, yeah.
I'm probably
More,
going to get flamed in banner for that comment. I've just realized, but take it more than at face value, please.
more, more on the draft here. They already SBK. They already dug themselves a hole by picking the bot lane duo that they did, and then they were against Xayah Leona. Then they didn't get better. They just kept on digging the hole.
Yeah,
And
that's a rough one.
then they took a seat at the bottom of the hole, and they were like, well, I guess this is our home now. And it was. And they lost. And yeah, a lot of credit to Akuma. They actually won in 27 minutes in this division. I was casting all 4 games, and I was like, oh my god, I am never going to get to go to sleep and have some food. And then Akuma comes in, and they're like, Smax, we got you, man. We got you. We're going to end the game. And I was like, oh, thank you, Akuma. And this is why I'm an Asian Invasion fanboy. Okay, that's not the only reason. But that's why I'm still an Asian Invasion fanboy to this day. Asian Invasion, best team to ever grace the PRL stage. I don't care what Go Next had to say with their 3-0.
Jesus.
But
All right.
anyway, all that aside, let's go to the standings here. So these standings are actually a little bit not updated, but they're not clearly as ruined as the Cinder Division. So
Thank you.
Akuma Katanas are in sole possession of first place because they have the head-to-head against SPK Embers. Then X1 Brotherhood and Ferocity are tied behind them at 4 and 2 for third place. Then TFT, Jet Black, and yeah, those are the only teams. Those are 2 and 4 at fifth place, and Red Hair Pirates and the newly rebranded Equilibrium Lightning are in seventh at 1 and 5, with Equilibrium having the head-to-head. So very segmented.
Yeah.
2-5 and 1, 2-4, 2, 2-2-4, and then 2-1 and
Damn,
5.
Smax. Imagine having a division where like everyone has their own spot in the standings instead of having like 17 interchangeable parts like a fucking assembly line. Like this is like it's pretty to look at compared to what we just talked about with my division. Like you can tell who's in first, Akuma, who's in second, SPK, who's in third. There's a battle between what is that? Only 2 teams? Wow. Like this
Pretty
is
crazy.
It's unfortunate for some of these lower teams, TFT, Jet Black, Red Hair, EQ certainly have a shot, God willing, to get back in the running, but might be trailing off.
Gonna be tough.
It's really that Frosty X1 battle, but it's also makes it easier to look at without giving yourself a headache or 17 migraines. It's just like we can actually talk about the big thing that's going to be here, which is, and I'll pitch the question to you first. Ferocity or X1 for third? Call it now. Not even halfway through.
So it's a lot easier because Ferocity just beat X1.
Oh, you're going to go off that? Give them a shot. Give them a shot. If they built better
and
picked better champions and played the game better, then they could have won.
It's not just that. I think Ferocity are on an upswing. A pretty nice upswing. Excuse me. A nice upswing too. They their only losses are to Ferocity and SPK Embers. Already a good sign. X1
Yes.
Brotherhood, they have a loss to Red Hair Pirates.
Yeah, that's a little spooky.
Yeah. So Rebirth Division.
Yeah, I think you know what? I think I can agree with you there. I think the only thing to say that's interesting is X1 has managed to beat Akuma Katanas before,
True.
but does beating a good team outweigh losing to a last place team? I feel like this is the Tootsie Pop thing because the world just may never know, Smax.
I actually do know, and it does not, because
Ah,
Forbidden was playing Tom Kench that game, and he went 0-10, and
ah.
it did not look good.
Okay, so
And
next division.
so now that he is back on his Leona and he can actually play the champion that he's been given, I don't think they're gonna lose again.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
uh, I love you, Chris. Anyway, let's move over to Rebirth Division, where the first game was E5 versus University of Wyoming, and Element 5, they they really scared me because I thought that this was going to be another repeat of just crazy long games, even though they have a Kali and they're against Ivern. Um, okay, I want to caveat this by saying that this was not a throw. Element 5 were in the lead the entire time. They just didn't really care about finishing the game in a timely manner. Uh, and you can't really blame them because they do outscale later on also, but they won early, so you'd think that they would just be able to close it out sooner than they did, but they just decided not to. Um, and I don't really know that there's too much more to say about this. The Ivern looked terrible, and it's really hard to look terrible against a Sejuani jungle in the early game, but he did. He got executed to the Ocean Drake at level 4. Not good. Um, and yeah, I don't
I
know.
do,
I don't know that there's
yeah,
much more to say about this. Element
not
5,
sure I can add
finish
anything.
games quicker, please.
Yeah, that was. I've had the pleasure of playing against FSR or E5, I guess, which not the org name, but
Yeah,
the players used to be on FSR, as you can see by
right.
River Demon's name.
Yeah,
That used to be a hit fast, hit hard kind of team. You'd play against them, they'd get a lead early, and then they'd win the game shortly after. And it's
yeah,
very interesting to see them fail to do it here. So I hope you don't have to wait long for them to listen to your call, but we should. I know they aren't necessarily number one in the standings, but if
right.
they can regain some of that luster, I think that it should be
Yeah.
interesting games to watch.
Did you know? You probably did know, but did you know that they beat Go Next off stream?
I actually did not. That's impressive.
It was a 46-minute game.
Of course, as most PRL games are, it did exceed 40 minutes.
They did beat Go Next though, but it was a 46-minute game, and that
Yeah,
one was one when they were behind by a lot. So they actually did come back
yeah.
in that one.
I mean, I hate to plug other leagues, but for those of you who know what ABL is, FSR was a very good team in ABL. They were a top contender when they were there for that.
Yeah,
I think it was only one season, but or 1 or 2 seasons, but they made their name then.
right.
So this isn't really a team to look down on, regardless of them being just an absolute middle runner in their division.
Yeah.
I think that just like GoNext figured out, some of these teams are going to have to start watching out if they can remember what League of Legends is.
Yep. And we'll see if they can continue to do that. I'm pretty excited about this team, and I believe we have them on stream next week too. So
Yep.
gonna be a team to watch as they are the only ones to beat Go Next. Speaking of Go Next, they won against the Badeeds in game 2 here, and you know, again, not too much to say.
Yeah, this
uh,
is, I feel like, going to be a very minimal discussion kind of thing, sadly.
yeah. Um, so Senna, good build, Kiwi. Great job. You built the right stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't expect him to build the wrong stuff. He's very good, but Yeah, he built the right stuff, and
Yeah.
he won lane against Zyra Khan, which is usually the counter pick into Senna. But he had this giant beefcake, being Seawolf, standing in front of him, so it was quite easy for him.
Yes.
And then, yeah, the Skarner pick didn't work. It ganked Tron like 3 times, and Tron was 0-2. So that was pretty cool. And then the Blender decided, all right, cool, I did my job. Now I'm going to go into the jungle never to be seen again until I decide to come out and team fight and die. And that is not the way that you win a game of League of Legends, especially not against GoNext, because they will run you over, and they did that.
Yeah, one of the saddest parts about the Skarner pick here is, for one thing, if you ult Orianna, she's probably already gotten her damage off. If she ult EQWs or Q ult EWs, great. You haven't stopped anything.
Yeah.
Senna paid her tax because Skarner's a tax item. You pay 1,300 gold and you don't worry about Skarner anymore. Great
Yep.
champion. Senna paid the tax. Seawolf is Nautilus. We saw him go in. We saw him accidentally go in. Who knows what some of that was? What you'll also notice is the boy didn't die a bunch. So
No, he did not.
regardless of what he was doing, he only died twice in, surprising for PRL, a 28-minute game.
Yeah.
Um, so good job by him. Same thing with Bashan. He can space out a Skarner, and Aurelia can dash around it if, God bless, Skarner doesn't accidentally click Arner or something. Who knows? But these are champions that interact fairly favorably with Skarner. It's a shame if Tristana gets ulted, misses something. It's a shame if Aurelia gets ulted after she ults before she can get damage off. Those things are a shame, but they're not going to turn the fight based on what GoNext has. So the big issue is it looks really good in theory. Skarner ulties, Lissandra ulties, good 1,300 gold champions. Other than that, what are you doing with that CC? Because if
Yeah.
word I can't say in Ivia, I'm assuming,
You can.
on the
Whatever.
Cassio,
Yeah.
let's just say Cassio. If Cassio isn't getting the damage off and is getting dove, that's an issue. When you have Nautilus and Aurelia and Ori to space it, and Senna and Talia, those are champions that can space fairly well or dive a Cassio. You're not doing anything anymore. You're just taking out 2 threats for a little bit.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's what some of this game was, where GoNext would have inconveniences thrown at them, but that's really all they were in a lot of these fights.
Yeah. It was just pretty much classic GoNext. Other than that as well, they ran over every lane except for top this time, which I'll get to in a second. They took every turret on the map. They didn't give up a single turret, and they ran it over. I want to mention though that it definitely seemed like B-Way was having an off day today. 6 deaths on the Aurelia, not something they usually see out of him. Mobility boots on Aurelia, not something that you usually see out of him or any good Irelia player. And then on top of the fact that they lost to E5 after this too, I am expecting that B-Way was
Yeah.
some
B-Way probably got
kind of
beat up in
tilted,
the locker room after this game.
some kind of
And then he's
tilted, some
gonna
kind of something
Yeah.
on this day, because it looked really uncharacteristic from him. Hopefully he's better next week. But yeah, still picking up the win over the Badids. Good stuff, expected stuff out of GoNext. Not GoNext Sentra. Haha, that's Odyssey. And then for game 3 here, the Badids take another loss in 20. 40. I'm so used to saying 40 minutes. In 28 minutes, both of them about the same time. And this time, the Badids decide to monkey draft, and it doesn't work because it's a monkey draft. And I don't know why you're picking Zillion into Mordekaiser. Or
Yeah, it's
ah.
the idea is, I will say this, the idea is decent. If Mord
No,
ults
it's not.
you and you have an ult, well, let's talk about it in theory only, not in what actually happens. If you're scared of a champion who is fairly strong right now, having an ability that separates you from your team and kills you, a good thing in theory is to have an ability that says, "Hey, wait a minute. If you kill me, but you didn't though." What you forget is things like, after Zillion dies, he can't move. He has to stand there. So Mordekaiser can wail on him. Your team can wail on him. Also, things like, if Zillion isn't supporting his team, then they're dying in the mortal, or they're dying outside of it,
Yeah.
or you don't have the presence you need anymore. This is a very good in theory decision, and then you see it in practice where it just doesn't do anything. Like you're not stopping not hooks, you're not stopping set engages, Rek'Sai engages. You can do something after they engage, but the too late model isn't going to help your team.
I
So,
would quantify a decision that's bad in theory as a bad, or a decision that's bad in practice as also being a bad in theory decision.
oh, it was
Just
absolutely a bad decision. I
yeah,
just think,
I just want to say that
yeah,
like you could see where they're thinking about it, but that doesn't mean it's a good decision.
yeah.
And it ended up being quite bad as well. Also, Ezreal doesn't do damage really, um, especially when you build him AP. Doesn't work. We've they've
Well, this
removed the
isn't.
ability power build from
The
Ezreal.
interesting is it's not AP. He just decided not to get an AD item and went hybrid, which is wild. You know, if you want to build tanky, you want the damage Triforce, great, good, grand, wonderful. What I don't get is deciding, okay, I have fully stacked Muramana. I have the Triforce. What do I need now? I need a hybrid healing item, so I'm going to get Gunblade. That you've immediately reversed what you were doing with your build. Do you want to
Yeah,
go crazy and be stupid? Take an IE and get lucky on your autos. That's funny. Do you want to go wild and go AP? Get Ludens and then get that splash damage. Do you want to build right? Maybe get a pen item and start getting through some of the armor that was starting to stack up on your the other team. But
yeah.
instead, what we see is just wasting an item slot. It's not like it was the worst decision he could have made, but my God, was it suboptimal.
Yeah. And this is a bot lane pairing that I was pretty high on after week 2, where they went 2-0. Drop One and Purple Power Pete, they played some pretty nice Zyra Khan games, and it seems like that might be their one trick, because when they're not on it, boy oh boy, do they look pretty lost. Um, and that's a bad look. That means that the other team can just go ahead and they can ban one of them, or just pick Nautilus into it, and then you're like, well, we can't really reasonably go with Zyra Khan anymore. Uh, oh no.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Badid's unfortunate, go 0-2. Uh, Original, though, they pick up this win, and they get the win over OTA Glacials, so that's pretty nice for them. And then OTA Glacials played the other team that's in contention for the worst team in the entire league, which is Raj's Redemption.
Now,
And Merc won the game for his team at 4 minutes.
now I gotta jump in, and this is gonna be like a 1 minute tangent. And I apologize in advance, but I have to jump in.
Okay.
I realized there was a problem with Raja's Redemption when I queued into a game they were playing on stream. I watched it the first like 30 seconds of the game. A classic thing where you either invade with everyone, you either set up to get the vision, or you 5-point. Those are really the only three options most people are going to take. These harassing, cool, high elo stuff we don't really do. What I saw Rajas do was 5-point on blue side, except usually where you stand to block the ward on blue side, they sent two people to bot try and everyone else 5-pointed. That does the opposite of what 5-pointing wants. You left the ward lane open, you left the invade lane open, you had no semblance of what was going on in the river because they weren't peeked out like you're supposed to be in Shrine NA. They
Yeah.
were in the try cowering. This is, boys, you got to fix your macro. Just from minute one, if you're messing up your macro, you got to be careful.
Yeah. This is another thing where you can start working on that, and it'll help out quite a bit, but you're already 0-6, so it's really unlikely that you make it into playoffs at this point. But
I
if you
just
want to
got to go
join again,
undefeated, to be fair.
what'd you say?
To be fair, all you got to be is undefeated.
I mean, even then, it's still unlikely, but it
Oh,
could
come
happen.
on. Rudy was a movie. Come on. Just root for it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good argument. I agree. But anyway, Merc's MVP got robbed by Walls, and I'm still upset about it. Okay.
Yeah, that's well. Being 17-2 is certainly impressive, but
Yeah.
I've played against Merc before. I've played with Merc a little bit. The one thing I know about Merc, whenever I have to go up against this guy, is you don't want to play. You don't want to play against this Thresh. This is another person I met in ABL. I've known him for a little bit. I hope he remembers me because I remember him. He's good at hook supports, but just he's very good at Thresh. He knows how to set up Lantern. He knows how to not make his plays obvious. He knows when to flay. He knows how to position hook, how to position body. He's a very good Thresh player. It's so easy to ban. You click on it in pick ban when it's the ban phase and you ban it and you're done. Easy. You have a chance bot lane.
It's like TSM
It's
versus Echo Fox.
yeah.
Or no, was it Clutch? Whatever the
I think
team
it was
that
Echo.
Hakuo was on.
Yeah.
They just didn't ban the Thresh, and then everyone
They just didn't
flamed
ban
them
Thresh.
forever, and they're still flaming them.
You just gotta ban him. Like it's so easy. And the other
Yeah.
thing is Thresh is a good champion right now, which, by the way, counters Leona, the support you picked. If you want to pick the Leona, you have to ban the Thresh. It's just I know you're blue side, maybe you're scared of Leona getting picked first. Who knows? But the reality of the situation is just ban him.
Yeah.
I promise it's easy and it won't even hurt. But you gotta ban the champion.
Yeah. OTA Glacials looked really good in this game, even just disregarding Merc, which it's hard to do because he just absolutely popped off in this game. Axum played the top side really well. He was weak side on Gangplank. He still ulted really well. And again, we're seeing top Rumble, which is useless. Don't pick top Rumble anymore, please. I understand if it's a flex pick because of that, but there aren't really bad matchups for Rumble mid. Veigar is not one of them, especially. So just put the Rumble mid. And yeah, Axum did a really good job up there. Walls obviously had the most damage in the game, mostly set up by Merc though. And Klepto-Bismol, even though his Jarvan build was bad, he still did really well. And I'll say that the other four members were definitely more standout than him, but he was serviceable on the Jarvan, so that's good. And it's good that he did that against the Olaf too, because that's pretty tough to do. But yeah, this is still a team to watch out for sure. They are in second place, I believe, because Famous Gaming actually is not registered correctly. Oh no, they're in third place because Original beat them and they're tied, so they have the head-to-head. So actually, Original is second and OTA Glacials is third, and then Famous is tied with Element 5. So I guess I'll just go down the whole standings. The Badids are 2 and 4, tied with University of Wyoming, and Raj's Redemption is 1 and 5. Um, so I guess, like you said, they could go undefeated, and then they would get in the
Yeah, it's
playoffs.
certainly possible. I think the thing to realize that is both good and bad. Famous Gaming, some of their main losses are accidental FF votes.
Yep.
Happens, oops. The important thing to realize is those FF losses are to some of the worst teams in the league. So the good news is you didn't give wins to top level teams that could have used them to place higher in the rankings.
Yeah.
The bad news of that is you've given over wins that can be considered free. You gave over some of your wins that you should have had, so now it's going to be
Yeah.
a struggle.
Because no one else is going to
So
lose to Raj's Redemption.
yeah, I think this is certainly a top 4, even maybe a top 5 contention for these top 3 spots. I think Go Next, to be fair, first lock easy. I would vote Go Next first in their division any day of the week.
I agree.
But after that, second, a bit of a toss up. Original should be able to cinch it, but OTA can make a running. FG can pray about it. Who knows? Third, this is where it gets interesting because you have whoever doesn't get second between OTA and Original. Then you have FG running. You have Element running. There's teams that can cinch out that playoff spot. So this will be a good league to watch, especially in the next 2 weeks, where some of these positions should get hashed out a little more.
Yeah. I'm really excited for this division. I wish that we saw the original OTA Glacials game. I'm sorry because I am the one who makes the the schedule and I didn't put it up, but I should have. But yeah, this is going to be another good one to watch. Especially, I'm looking out for Element 5 because, of course, they did take the first game off of Go Next, and they had a 2-0 week as well. So that team's on an upswing. I think OT Glacial is still really good. Original on an upswing too. And yeah, I think that's all there is really to say about the standings here of the Rebirth Division. I don't know if we have any like burning questions specifically about this division. Do you have one?
I think just watching and see what will happen. This is a very interesting division like my own, where it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag for a while until we
Right.
see some of these teams go against each other, the top teams.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Now we can get on over to the questions, of which we have 4. One of them is from Laxin himself. So how about you go ahead and ask that one first?
Okay.
So then we can get to that, and then we can round it out with the other questions here.
Do I gotta like dear PRL it, or do I just ask immediately?
Uh, you can format it however you like.
Okay. Uh, to whom it may concern, dear Smax.
Okay.
What's the most useless lane in PRL? And I'm going to specify this because the answer probably coincides with what everyone thinks the worst lane is, but this is a division specific question. A lot of people have realized top sucks, I hate it. Great,
Yep.
good, grand, wonderful. Top is a lane that you can lose and then win the game. I feel bad for top laners. There's also a lane, in my opinion, where sometimes when you stomp it, you still don't win. Like that's unfortunate. That's a shame.
Yeah.
But PRL specifically, we've certainly seen games, in my opinion, even this week as we were talking about some of these games, where it's almost like it was won or lost through top, where some of these advantages didn't mean anything, but to the same point, some of these picks really mattered. Like the Kled we saw before, lost lane into Aurelia. That's a big shame. But the position making, not the position making, the decision making, the positional play, being able to be useful to your team really ramps up the ability over just being, 11 and 2 Oriana from Tron. Great, good. Like you got a bunch of damage. That certainly makes you a useful role. You're certainly carrying the game. But to argue that point, who's setting that up for you? In that game, it's the support, it's the jungle, you have other people assisting. But there's tops in the meta right now that are really just some of these setup tanks like Set, who say, I'm going to start the fight for you, I'm going to control the fight for you, and I'll even deal true damage for you. Like that's one good champion in the role, I know,
And
but
Ornn. Ornn's a pretty
and
big
yeah,
one.
Orange starting off some of this. A Kali top lane when you swing her up there. We saw FSR River Demon 10 and 1. Can he close out a game? No. Can he dominate on a Kali? Absolutely. It's it's some of these champions where I know top lane is kind of a lost cause. Even God bless what we did. We put Soraka top. That's really
Yeah.
a shame. But there's times where we're turret diving bot and we should give them gold back for the play. And then Job hit the R button and we're fine. And it's like, oh, gold for free. Like Shen as well with those ultis. Like people play champions in PRL that have this goal influence. So I know I asked the question for the last 2 minutes, and I'm going to answer it immediately as well. I wouldn't necessarily say that top is the weakest role in PRL.
You don't think so?
No, I'm going to say something else for a very weird reason.
Hmm.
I'm going to go with support for two reasons. For
Okay.
one, I think overall the support quality that PRL sees is not necessarily high. You cannot take, and this is just for PRA. If you took out exclusively the starting supports, all 32 of them, I know there's some teams that rotate and bring them jungle and other things, and great, but the 32 starting supports, pull them out. This is not an even skill pool. You can very easily divide them up into, high tier, high middle, middle, low, low. That I think for you, and even in a week, if you ever want to do that, if you want to do positionally, that wouldn't be that hard for this role. And the reason
Hmm.
because it wouldn't be a struggle over the top part. That would be easy. The only problem you'd have is for that bottom part. The other issue is that comes from the support quality. There's a lot of supports that are losing their team the games. And I do want to throw it back to last week as well. There were some teams you're talking about with Goose. And as he was talking about ADCs he respected on one hand, you immediately almost heard that followed up by supports that didn't complement them.
Hmm.
And it was even at one point me and Demon were having problems. And there's a time where I could be losing Demon in the lane because we're not on the same page. So it's not necessarily that the role is horrible, but I think that some of the people that play this role in PRL really need to be cognizant of the power they have because they're not wielding it properly, and that's causing problems for their team.
It's a really tough question. There's a lot of points you can point to, but yeah, I think you could do a similar thing with a lot of the roles, where you can take all 32 and then rank them and put them in like different pools and stuff. So
It's a lot tougher than top is bad, haha.
yeah, it
If you really
is.
if you
It
really
is
break down PRL specifically,
because it's about player strength, right?
yeah.
Huh. Um. So, what is this in reference to? I guess is the main
This
question.
is this is a PRL exclusive. The only Your sample size is restricted to PRL. I only want to know what role in PRL is stinky and all the teams need to replace their players.
So, so like what you're saying is if we took like the best support and then we compared everyone else to that guy,
Well,
then like
that's not necessarily it. It's not the
it sounds like that would
it's
be it,
it's
right?
not the range that we're looking at of top to bottom. It's specifically what role in the bottom, I'd say the bottom half of their players just screw up the game so much for their team that it's like, why, I'll take a paid vacation. Like, come on, guy. But I hate to be rude, but it's true. It's like, what role is costing their team games more often than not? And it's very much that, like, you could say, one team has a bad jungler and one team has a bad mid and one team has a bad support, a bad ADC, a bad top, and all teams can have that player that isn't necessarily the best as the others. But where is that most common? You know what I mean? Like, among which lane, among which role is we would be better if X was better if we had a different X. What is that X basically?
Hmm. I think you're spinning this in a lot of ways that make me want to agree with support.
Well, I'm a good salesman, so
I guess
that might be
so.
part of it.
Um, yeah, because top won't lose you the game, right?
Top won't lose you the game. It certainly won't win you the game, and that certainly makes it an unimpactful role, which I think is also something that you should weigh. If a
Yeah.
role doesn't do anything to the game, then it might just be the worst role because you could probably have your top laner missing for a day and fight a 4v5 and win. Oh no, we
Yeah.
don't have a top. What's going to happen? That certainly would make it the most useless role.
Yeah.
But I think support's useless for the reason of it's the opposite of useful. It's harmful. You're costing things, which is making it useless.
Yeah.
Instead of top, which doesn't spend resources, granted, it doesn't give them to you either. But I'd rather take just a consistent nothing over that like 60-40 of it's horrible, but sometimes you're good.
In the way you're spinning it, I'm gonna agree with support, but I could also spin it in a different way where it's like I say support diff more than I say top diff, which means either that all the top laners are about even or all the top laners are, well, I guess it would be that they're all about even, and that could be that they're all really good or they're all really bad. And I want to say, I don't know. It's really tough, right? Because top doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I
I don't know.
think I'm a support man. I'm biased. The reason
Yeah.
why I really think it's support as well is there are, and I'm not going to name names. That's rude. There are supports I'll see in this league or even in other leagues sometimes where when I look at them and I'm going to play against them, I'm like thankful. I'm like, God bless. I'm a Jew who went to a Catholic school. I could do both prayers.
Oh
I
man.
got it down. Thank you, God. But like, it's just you shouldn't ever be thankful to look at someone else and have to lane against them. That's a wild thought. But it's true. And in PRL, it's true more often than not. There's a lot of lanes, and sometimes it's ADC more than support, granted, but there's bot lanes I've looked at, and it's usually support weighted, whether it's pool, play style, or just general matchup, how you play against that person.
Champion pool is really
That,
bad for a lot of supports, but also
that's
for
the
a
other
lot of
thing.
ADs.
Yeah, this bot lane is very restrictive in PRL, which
Yeah.
is kind of a problem.
And in just like competitive play in
Oh, yeah.
general. There are like there are like 6 good supports, and by good I mean pickable. And then for AD there's like maybe 7.
Smax
And
is
if
saying
you're
that because he hasn't seen my orange support yet. Just you wait, buddy.
there's always counter matchups and stuff like that. But really, if you're not playing those champions, you're a hindrance to your team.
Yeah.
And it's more so there than the other 3 roles. So yeah, there's a big bit of that for the bot lane. But I think we've spent too long on this
Yeah, so
question.
let's
It
let,
was
let's jump
your
up to the next.
question though, so
That's fair. I got
we
to defend it longer.
yeah. But anyway, let's go to the next question, which is another doozy. It's from Griffin, and it says, "Would you answer the question of who the worst team is?"
Now,
And I said yes, and I am going to answer it right now.
okay.
Uh, and I'll
Are you stalling or is this just the
no,
intro?
this is the intro.
Okay.
I'm gonna. This is a segment where you just have to throw a bunch of teams under the bus.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm gonna do that right now. We've got CSU Vikings. That's one of them. Tempest
Yep.
Gaming is one of them. Red Hair
Yep.
Pirates is one of them. And Raj's Redemption is one of them. They're the bottom teams in each division.
So we're
Obviously not counting Virginia Tech.
and CLT.
And CLT.
Mentally, CLT is the worst. Haha. We moved
Haha.
past that.
Yes.
Now for skill.
All right.
Ah.
This might be a hot
Who's your
take.
vote?
This might be a
Yeah.
hot take here. But my
Yes.
vote is actually Red Hair Pirates.
Okay.
And I'm sorry about Red Hair. I'm sorry to you, Red Hair Pirates. But you can't pick those 5 champions and suck in team fights. That's just unfathomable to me that they managed to do that. And I hate to be so down on them right here, but that's what the question is. And I'm just telling you like it is. You can't have Rumble, Malphite, Olaf, Senna, and Tarek and not team fight well. It's crazy that would happen. And it did happen. And as of this moment, Red Hair Pirates are my pick for the worst team in the league.
Now, I have 2 statements and then a question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Goose has told me, well, not told me directly, but has said before that CSU, Cleveland State Vikings, are very bad.
They are.
He said it in chat. He has said it in podcast. He will probably tell his children when they are born. CSU is a very bad team. I, however, am going to vote Raj's for 2 reasons. One of them is just kind of a feels bad, but this is kind of the point of the segment. And one of them is kind of the reason you gave. So you said, picking those team fighting champions, you should be able to team fight. That's true. When you can't 5-point, like this is minute 1, and this wasn't the first game they've ever played competitive. I believe this was last week. So this is not like the first game they ever played, had some jitters. People have done that before. Is it horrible? Absolutely. But either whether you haven't played competitive before or you have those jitters, it's understandable. When you've gotten games under your belt and you just don't 5-point, that was a mental decision not to do it. And everyone decided, because you see how people are pathing. At any point they could have broken up, and they stayed there the entirety of it. Yeah. That you can't fix a minute 1 mistake, because there's so many worlds where they invade, they come through the back. There's worlds where that gets punished, and thankfully it didn't. But you can't risk losing a game before the minions spawn.
Yeah.
That's a wild assumption. The feels bad answer I'm going to give is Raz's Redemption may be one of the only bottom teams who, and Red Hair might have done, no, Red Hair didn't do this. Raja's might be the only bottom team whose only win is from an FF. And that's a feels bad. I apologize for saying that, but that's a feels bad. Oh, Tempest as well. So, I would put Raja's a little lower than Tempest. God bless my team in my division. I meant the team in my division, sorry. But I'm going to defend them a little bit because of what Rajas did that minute 1. Yeah. But this kind of slam is to them as well, and I feel bad about that. But I would rather be a team with no wins than a team who has a win record, and when people have to ask you about it, you go, oh, the other team didn't show up, so we won. Other than that, we didn't win any games. Like, you have to explain that you're bad at that point, which is just mentally taxing.
For Tempest, they're like, well, 2 teams dropped out of the league. They, one of them was cheating and one of them couldn't make it. And for Raj's Redemption, they're like, well, the team that we were going to go against thought that watching the Super Bowl was more important than playing their match against us. So we have a win now.
And that was the only win we have. That's a wild statement.
Oh,
now, I have a question to follow this up. It's going to get worse immediately because of my question, if you'll allow me to ask it.
Oh, God. Okay.
Could we special event organize, and whatever game Ascension streaming, I'll get the other team to agree so we can put this in place of it. I'm sure my whole division actually would allow not being streamed this day. Could we put together like a wounded dog fight where like both of these bottom teams fight for like bottom supremacy, and whichever team loses like wins the argument we just had?
This gets asked every time.
It does, but now it's so prevalent.
First of all, it's not up to me. But second of all,
would you back it? Would you cast it?
I would cast it.
And would you back the idea?
It's really BM. But then again, this conversation in general is really BM. So I'm already off the deep end.
We've already moved past it at this point. Our reputation's in the drain. The question is,
I'll back it.
Would you like to watch it? Yeah. Canadian champ It's not on you anymore. Just look the other way, baby. Everyone add
Oh
him
man.
in Discord.
All right. Well,
That's
we
how
have.
enough people listen to him. At Canadian Champ in PRL Discord and ask for what would you call this? Where it could be like a
I don't
code
know.
word,
I don't know.
but like it also wouldn't be too mean.
Anyway, we have two more
Oh,
questions and
best of the worst.
we have two more questions and we're almost at 2 hours. So let's round this out a little bit here. We got AKM Forbidden. He asks, who is the best Zoomer jungler, Gen Z? Griffin or Doubtful? They are both teenagers. They're both in high school. Actually, I think Griffin might be in middle school. Um, but yeah, they're both very good. They're both on top teams, and I thought a lot about this, and I think that Griffin is a better rounded player, but Doubtful is better on Lee Sin and Rengar. That's my pick.
I wait. You just said, but hold on. For the sake of the stream, you did just say both of them. Or do you
Griffin
mean that
Griffin is my
on those
pick.
champions he's better? Okay, okay, I
Griffin
understand what
is
you
my
said now.
pick.
Griffin is also my pick. I agree with what you said, and Griffin's my pick all around because if your argument for why a player is better is, well, if you pick them this champion, I feel like it's a very rough argument to make because that's what bans were made for.
Right.
If you're worried about a jungler, and let's say you teach your guy, you teach Griffin Lee Sin, so you pick Lee Sin, you ban Rengar, what are you gonna do? Like it's just unfortunate
Yeah.
at that point. So
I'll caveat and say that Doubtful is still good on other champions.
oh, Doubtful is still a good jungler, and it's not like those are the only two he can play.
Yeah.
What I would say is Griffin has shown versatility.
Yeah.
We saw this week in the fact that
He picked
he
Zac.
basically
He
he
still did
forced
really well.
Echidna to win the game. He picked Zac, haha, good meme. He just jumps in. He quite literally forced Echidna to say, "You're gonna win. You're gonna win me the game." And that's not always easy to do on a jungler because God bless, sometimes mid laners resist that. So, good on him. I'd vote him as well.
Yeah. All right. And then we have one more question, and this is from me. Or wait, no, excuse me. We
We have a
skipped the
Klexo
Klexos
question.
question, and then we'll go to mine. Mine is tied in with this actually. We'll
All right.
I'll mention it after I read it. So Klexo asks, does this split's PRL look worse competitively and strength wise compared to last split, which is the fall split? And I want to point out that as of this last Sunday, there are no longer any undefeated teams in the entire league, which is
Which
pretty
is
crazy.
wild. I believe there were 3 or 4 last
There was
split.
one. It was
Oh,
SBK Embers.
they got eliminated eventually, but for the longest time, I'd say for a majority of the season, I think it was like 4 originally, then it was 3, then one knocked the other out. It was 2. Immediately after, it was 1.
Yeah.
And then SPK wrote it out and then decided not to win finals.
Yeah,
But
there were 13-1 teams.
yes,
Or there was one of them, and that was Recon 5. They were
yes.
13-1. Zephyr was 12-2, and
I think
so was
Akuma was
TFT.
12-2.
Akuma was 11-3, and GoNext
Oh,
was 12-2.
Oh, okay.
At this rate, we're not even going to have a 13-1 team.
Hold on. Let's not count out Ascension, big guy. But I get what you mean. We did drop a game we shouldn't have. But I'm gonna argue a very interesting point. And
Okay.
granted, we have a bunch of teams that can't win games, so that's just we're gonna pull at the strings there. And we'd have 2 teams that dropped. Granted, we don't know how strong Virginia would have been, and the team who we shall not name anymore that got kicked out. Granted,
we don't know
they were
how
pretty
strong they were
strong.
supposed to be.
They were stronger than they should have been, but to their credit, they were also a fairly strong team without him. What I'm going to say is, well, I think last season was better competitively. I'm not going to say by a large margin. We saw a lot of those top tier teams, and they were pulling away with the race, and that's kind of the issue. We saw a lot of divisions where halfway through the split, we probably could have named the top 3 teams from each division roughly, and you would have been right. There would have been no doubt in your mind that you pinned the top 3. This, we're seeing, you have first place in some of the divisions, arguably, you have second place pinned down, but a lot of those second places in almost every third place spot is not locked in this season. And we're hitting that halfway point, and it's really up in the air. And even some of those first place, second place spots can be peeled away from some of these teams. So while that could be an indicator that the top is that much worse, I would also argue that's an indicator that the middle of these divisions is that much stronger. There are teams in the middle now that have a fighting chance and aren't going to give up on the season yet. Whereas opposed to last season, I'm going to go to my own division again last season. It was said my division was the weakest division. The only good team was SPK. And I think even at one point we were counted out from the finals. And we, granted, it was a 5-game series. For those who don't know the story, we got reverse swept by the finalists, Akuma.
The winners.
However, the winners, Akuma, we 2-0'd Akuma. And then we got reverse swept, but we 2-0'd them. So we
Yes.
climbed up. We proved our division wasn't bad. And we reverse swept.
You
But there
proved
was a lot of that.
you weren't bad.
We did it for the division.
The rest of the division was still terrible.
Oh, yes. It was very bad. But that's what I'm talking about. There are some of those surprises in some of those divisions, but there was entire divisional weakness last season. I would say now there's certainly a division you could look at and say overall, this division's bad. Like overall, this division's the worst compared to other divisions, especially some of the bottom sections. But I would say when you're pulling out the top 2, top 3 from each division, they're very strong. When you're pulling out which teams are the best, you can't get to the top 5, 6, 7 teams without naming the 4th division like you could last season. You're probably getting 4, 5, 6 in before I would say 6 maximum, but I'd even say 5. By the time you hit the 5th best team in PRL, you've hit each division once. And I think we talked this about 2 days ago even, just off of this.
Yeah.
The upper crust strength, you could say, of the teams is much more competitive. It's not necessarily better strength-wise,
right.
But I'd say in a competitive sense, it should make for much better finals games.
And it should make for a better league as a whole, right? Because they might not be at the strength that they were at last split yet, but because it's more competitive, that means that it's likely that they will reach that same height, which is pretty cool. On this topic, I wanna bring up one stat, I guess. So thinking back to the quarterfinals of last split, I mean, we had Team Fish Taco Tempest, Zephyr. We had SPK Embers. We had Dawn Revenant. We had Asian Invasion, Go Next. We had R5 Scarlet, and we had Akuma Blades. I think 3 of those are back.
And I think
SPK Embers, Asian Invasion is reincarnated as the Kumaktanas, and Go Next are back. There are pieces from the others that are back, but those are the only 3 that have really returned. So just looking at that, it's hard to say that that it's the same height of strength because the 5 of the 8 best teams are gone. In their place, there are new good teams and such, but the highest competitive teams are gone. The 2 finalists, in fact, are gone. So just based on that, it is a little bit weaker. But like Laxin is saying here, I think that it will get higher as the season goes on, and I think in playoffs we will see a more competitive league.
I'd also say with those 8 you mentioned, I feel like once we hit those top 8, you could immediately name before those games were played who the top 4 were going to be. Like you could look at those 8 teams and say, I don't even think there were any surprises. Like the teams you thought were going to win were going to win. Well, and it was like, I think there was one. Wasn't there?
Asian Invasion got 3-0'd, and I didn't think that they would.
Yeah, that was rough. But other than that, you had a good. I'm going to rephrase. You had a good shot. The
other 3
did get roughed up a little bit. Yeah. But you had a really good shot. A 75% success rate on guessing the top 4 teams out of 8 teams in playoffs. It should be tough.
Yes.
But you pretty much could have nailed it. And if you guessed Asian Invasion would have lost somehow, like that's one thing going awry. This season feels like once we hit those top 8 numbers, you might have a good idea, but it's probably going to be a lot tougher to really nail down who those teams are going to be.
Yeah. I'm really excited for it too. It's a little bit too early to get into who we think are the top 8. So we'll probably save that for another episode, maybe next, because we haven't even seen all the teams play each other. It's not the first round robin is not even over yet.
So can I ask a different strength question before we close it out then?
Yes, this will be the last thing we do.
It's not which teams in PRL would be the top 8. If you organized a league game, would the casters or the analyst desk win? You have to use analyst desk members that are not players on teams, by the way, before you start using them. So you have to try to, you know what I mean? You can't use like the best players from the teams that are also analysts. You got to kind of use your pool. You know what I'm asking?
Most of our analyst desk is players. You know that?
Yeah, I know. You can't really get far in the pool. I think you get like 2 or 3 before you use players. But who would
It
win?
would be me. I'm also a caster, by the way, so I'd be on both teams. It would be Lemons, who is also a caster, so
Yeah,
he'd be on both teams.
we'd clone you guys and put you on both teams. Yes.
To be fair, okay, we'll say Lemons is an analyst desk exclusive because
Yeah.
he hasn't cast a game this split. He's going to on Friday, so that'll
Okay.
be fun. Or Saturday, excuse me. But we'll have him exclusive analyst desk. Tea time. He hasn't played this split. He played last split, but
200 ping jungler. Yes.
yep. Um, and then after that, it's other casters. There's Baymax, who's a caster.
Yeah.
There's
There's Rye, of course. There's Just Express.
yeah,
There's
and there's players. So
yeah. So who would win?
the desk,
You think the analyst desk would win?
yes,
Now, have you also realized that the analyst desk is made up almost exclusively of support players?
I do
So
know
while there are
that.
players, you'd basically have support players off-rolling, making up a decent amount of what would be the analyst powerhouse.
Wait, hold on. So I don't want to flame my co-casters,
But
but
you're going to.
are we going into the play-by-play caster pool first, or are we going into the color caster pool first?
They get priority pick. They can pick whatever
They can
casters
pick
they want.
who they want to win.
Yeah, they're trying. This is a bloodbath.
All right,
Whoever loses dies, and their jobs get replaced.
I'm joining the caster team then.
Ah. So now the casters are going to win.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it was by frequency, then it would be Mighty, who doesn't really play the game anymore. Um, and then Paul, who's an Overwatch player.
Okay.
And Mercy, I don't actually know what rank Mercy is. I think he's gold. So we'd have a lot of play-by-play casters in there who are not the highest rated. But if we could pick, then it would be me and Acetize, who is Diamond 1.
Okay.
So I think just
So
by
we're betting
that,
it all on the Diamond One player.
yeah, he's really good.
Damn.
He made it to the semifinals last split. Where were you?
That's fair. Got reverse swept, sadly. So I have another question. Just follows up real quick, and this is we can end on it. You don't have to answer it.
Okay.
Unlike how schools have like the sports day, PRL needs to have that now. Where can we have the best of the worst match, which will be horrible? We'll have this bloodbath, and we could just do everything no one wants, and all in one day, and get it casted.
You know,
I'm pitching it now because I'm not gonna get the chance to again.
we will have to see if
All right.
people would want to watch that. Because if people don't want to watch it, then we're not going to do it.
That's fair.
But anyway, yeah. We're going to end it with that. We're a little bit over 2 hours. I think this is longer than the last episode with just 2 people, so you can blame Laxin for that.
Oops.
Long-winded support boy for Essentia. Thank you for being on the show with me, by the way. I really do appreciate it. And like I mentioned, if you out there are listening and you want to be on this show or on the analyst desk, feel free to DM me. We have open spots for sure, going into essentially the entire split long. Even if we get into playoffs and your team is knocked out, you can still join us there. Laxin just DM'd me. He asking to be on the show. It worked. He did that last time, and it worked because he's here now. Anyway, do you have anything you want to say before I give the final words here?
Yeah. Just to every team in PRL, build the right items, pick the right champions, ban the one tricks. If you do that, it'll look decent. And that's kind of it. I think that's the sum up of today.
All right. Well, you heard it here from Laxin first. Sound advice for sure. You definitely should take his advice there. And also that he's giving you that advice at the detriment of himself because he's in this league. So
and for free.
Giving that secret away for everyone else. What a kind and generous man Laxin is. Anyway, thank you guys all for listening. Be sure to drop us a like or subscribe if you liked the show and you want to see some more on YouTube. We do have those the notifications if you want to turn on the bell. We also have the notifications in the server, so we will ping at Academy League whenever these go live. If you've taken away your Academy League role, uh, put it back on if you want the notifications, so that we can ping you, and we'll tell you when those are live. We also have the questions and discussions chat. If you want to drop some questions, like we had Forbidden Fluke, or not for Fluke. We had Forbidden, Klexo, and Griffin, and also Laxin, who dropped us questions. If you want to drop a question, feel free to do so. It can be a question, hot take, or discussion topic. We will go over at the end. And we're going to do more power ranking stuff as the season goes on. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, just know that it'll probably happen after like week 6 or week 7, that kind of thing, as we're getting into playoffs. But anyway, thanks again for watching. If you want to tune in while we are live, so you can watch the games live, they happen Thursday through Sunday at 7 Eastern time every single day of those. We also have our Odyssey League Monday and Wednesday nights at the same time if you want to watch some higher level League of Legends as well. And yeah, I'm gonna be casting a lot of that. So if you like my voice, then that's where you can hear it more. So that'll be also pretty cool. If you like Laxin's voice, then join
You're
the club.
SOL.
Yeah, everyone loves Laxin's voice. That's why he's on the podcast here.
That's why
Uh,
my team mutes me.
yeah, exactly. But anyway, thanks again for watching. I say that every single time, way too much, but it's true. I'm just really thankful for you guys listening in and tuning into the SmaxTalk Podcast. I have been Smax. This has been Laxin, and we are gonna head out. See you next time.